Everything that you deal with on a day-to-day basis, whether at a professional level or a business level, revolves around data, in which you are going to deal with data points, data sets, to make informed decisions. Whether you're a finance professional, accountant, marketing professional, data analyst, an entrepreneur, business, or whatever it is, even students, you are going to deal with data on a day-to-day basis in order to help you make informed decisions in terms of how to proceed further, what makes sense and what does not make sense, what has a positive impact, what has a negative impact. And one of the best ways in order to make sense of the data is data visualization, where we take raw data and actually transform it to visuals, which help you find patterns, get insights, and create connections between various data points. And this is the whole core of this current class, in which we are going to utilize a very powerful Microsoft Power Platform tool, which is Power BI, which is considered to be a very powerful data visualization tool as part of data analysis and data science, which will help you make sense of the data that you have through visuals. In this current class, we're going to walk you through from A to Z how to set up Power BI, what is Power BI, how to go about creating your reports, getting your data sources, creating your visuals, various types of visuals, up to the point where you are ready to actually export that lovely report, which will help you make sense of your data, whether at your own professional career or at your own business. And not just that, you'll be provided with a free trial to help you actually utilize the tool and practice easily, completely complimentary, in addition to providing you with raw data to help you practice and apply all of these core concepts, such that you don't have to find data or try to dig for data to help you practice. All of these things are going to be provided to you in this current class, which is very powerful, very up to the market trends right now, since all of the industries are going towards automation, performance enhancements, efficiencies, processes, workflows. These are crucial lessons that you need to be equipped with in today's world. And one of the most important things that we're dealing with in the modern world is data, how to make sense of data. And this is what we're going to be covering in this current class. In order to make sure that we have a clear trajectory, we need to set up some clear objectives, clear milestones that we need to achieve in this current powerful course. We're going to start from the basics, assuming that you have no idea whatsoever what is Power BI, what are the components, and how to go about it. Ground zero all the way to helping you to become a hero in Power BI with fraction of the time. We'll start up with the foundational knowledge, exploring what is Power BI, the interface, the different options that you have, whether desktop or Power BI service, which we're going to be using in this current course, since you have professionals who use desktop and Mac, and unfortunately Power Desktop is not part of the Mac users. So to cover all grounds, we're going to teach you what works for all of the users, for all of the cases, for all of the applications. Once we transition from the foundational knowledge, learning about Power BI, we're going to learn about the key components of Power BI, how to get your free trial. You'll be provided with the information on that as well. And then how would you go about exploring the interface? How would you go about learning about the visuals, different types of visuals? We're going to cover how to use almost every single one of them with details and the key areas that will help you drive innovation for your own unique cases. You'll be provided with an exclusive data set based on practical models. We got a really fun data set we're going to be using, which is part of video game sales, which is really powerful for the gamers that we have within our community. You can use that data set to help you actually visualize the data, come up with analysis and analytics as part of data science to complement your journey as part of the Power BI learning curve. And not just that, you'll be learning how to create your reports, how to draft the reports, what are the core elements, what are the key components, how to navigate, how to use filters, how to use slicers, how to create your dashboards, what are the mechanisms for exploring data relationships, how could you explore the interlinks between reports and dashboards, all of these things. Even though at this current stage they might seem overwhelming to you, but there's nothing to be worried about. You'll be walked through it from A to Z, step by step, such that, like I've mentioned, we're going from ground zero, assuming that you have no knowledge. By the time you're done with this current class, you should witness a transformation. And definitely we look forward to receiving your feedback on the transformation that you're going to be seeing as we cover these major milestones. In this section of the course, we're going to be learning about a very powerful data visualization tool, which is Power BI. It will help us make sense of the data that we have as part of data science applications, whether you're taking a look at sales reports, some analytics. In order to understand the full-on picture and to visualize data, Power BI is a very, very powerful tool. In this section, I'm going to be teaching you how to set up your data, how to fine tune your data, how to navigate Power BI interface, how to create reports, multiple pages, making sure there are interactions between the reports, using relevant data sets between reports to make sense of the data, in addition to powerful visualizations and connectivities between visualizations to help you come up with powerful reports that stand out. And welcome back. Now we're going to learn about one of the Power Platform tools or components, which is the Power BI. Power BI is considered to be a data visualization tool. Basically, it helps you take some data, turn it into one of these reports. Every single element on this page that you see is part of Power BI, which is created from scratch, and you have the ability to build it every single time and every single item by itself. So the visual board that you see over here is part of a Power BI, which helps you create interactive reports and dashboards, which helps in making data-driven decisions by turning raw data into insights. This is very powerful because when you're dealing with Power BI, simply you're able to collect data from the Dataverse, and then you're able to make sense of the data, highlight certain elements, highlight certain features, display them graphically, add colors, add annotations, add labels. All of these things, they help you drive your business forward and create proper decision-making processes rather than just simply dealing with an Excel file and trying to find the patterns in the data. Power BI is considered like an analytics tool. Think about it that it's a hub that combines all the data for you, but transforms it to something which is visual for you to make decisions based on the visual representation and analysis. When we're dealing with Power BI, we need to understand there are some key important terms that we need to focus on. First of all, we have what we call as reports. What are reports? This is an example of a report. It's a multi-page document that allows users to explore data, this is one, through various visualizations. The same way we see them over here, we call them tiles. You got pie chart, you got bar chart, you got curves, such as charts, tables, and maps. And reports are typically used for in-depth analysis. We collect the data from the Dataverse, and then we present it visually, enabling users, which is us, to dive into the data and filter information and uncover insights. You're able to actually see patterns, you're able to see figures, you're able to highlight the areas that need attention, you're able to see patterns. All of these are presented through the reports on the Power BI. So a report is a detailed document. As we're going to see this once we dive into the application of Power BI, we'll learn about this from scratch. It's a multi-page document which includes in-depth data analysis, data visualization to help you draw some insights when it comes to your business. In the previous lesson, we learned about reports. Now we're going to learn about dashboards. So what are dashboards? If you recall, we said that reports are basically in-depth pages, yes? So a report is a single page. It's not a multiple page scheme. It's a single page. You think about it as a high level view that aggregates. It means collects data from key different metrics and visualizations, which are designed for quick insights to help us monitor and get important information at a glance. So what does that mean specifically? If I take a look at the following schematic, if you notice in the middle, this is what we call as a dashboard. A dashboard is a group of insights or visualizations which have been collected from different reports. Let's say, for example, we have the first report over here. We have collected some data. This is our data set from an Excel file. Now, we have created some visualizations in this report. Some of it is important, some of it does not need that much attention. We select the important parts and we are able to represent them on a part of the dashboard, which is this part over here. Then we go to a second report, different pages, different data source, let's say SQL file and another Excel file or another part of the Dataverse. Then we have the visualizations in report number 2, and we select one part of it that we want to share in combination with the first report. So this is the part over here. This is the second one. And the same logic for the third one as well. And we share it over here and over here. So you get the idea. So a dashboard is a high-level view which takes elements or parts from different reports and displays them at one location. So in case you find a report which is quite too detailed and another report which is quite too detailed and another one which is quite too detailed, you do not need to go through every single one of them. A dashboard is like a summary. This is the best way to think about it. It's a summary of all the important items within a report. So within a report, you could take one part and inject it into the dashboard, or you could remove it and substitute it by something else. So the way you need to think about this when you're dealing with Power BI, in order to be able to deal with it easily, you have two core elements, reports and dashboards. The reports are the detailed multi-pages, which include all of the information that you would like to highlight. A dashboard, think about it like a single page. It's a summary page which takes information from various reports and displays them to you at one central location. Now, Power BI comes mainly in two different versions. You have the desktop that you're able to download on your computer and the Power BI service, which is online through the Microsoft platform. Now, there are two main distinctions between the Power BI desktop and the Power BI service. First of all, the Power BI desktop is mainly localized on your machine. You have many data sources that you're able to get from your computer directly, applying various modifications, more flexibility in the sense, but it's machine oriented. However, Power BI service, it's online, right? It's a service that you're accessing through the cloud. You have more flexibility from accessing anywhere. You're able to integrate apps and workspaces and data flows, which is quite limited with Power BI desktop, since it's computer-based. It's going to be utilized mainly on the device. So creating these data flows and apps cross computers or cross network is going to be quite difficult to do. But both of them, they share the ability of creating visualizations, reports, dashboards, Q&As, sharing them. So they have that same applicability. Power BI service is mainly drawn towards organizations, multiple users, cross-sharing. Power BI desktop, think about it as a software that you're going to be using on your computer. You as a single user in that sense. And once you are done, you're able to share it, but without the flexibility of a Power BI service. You could upload it, by the way, to the Power BI service and then share it, and vice versa. You could have a Power BI service report that has been created online, and then you can download it to the desktop. Both of them will get the same results to a certain extent. The main difference lies in the flexibility. In addition to that, Power BI desktop is mainly on Microsoft-based operating systems. However, Power BI service could be accessed either from Microsoft-based, any operating system, MacBook, Mac, an iPad, whatever it is, a phone. It could be doable to access the Power BI service. However, with the Power BI desktop, you need an actual computer, which is with an operating system from Microsoft in order to use it. So Mac users, they are not able to access this, unfortunately, but with Power BI service, everyone can access this.
So that's why in this current course, we're going to be utilizing Power BI service in order to learn and understand how to go about learning about Power BI. At the same time, the things that we're going to be learning are easily utilized within the Power BI desktop. That way, all the users are covered, whether from Mac users or Microsoft users, and everyone has the ability now to learn about Power BI and apply it to desktop as well. In case you would like to download Power BI, we can just simply go on Google, type Power BI desktop. It's a free download software to download it on your localized computer and machine. But from this point onwards, we're going to be utilizing Power BI since we have users from who are using different operating systems, different computers. Some of them are on mobile phones, some of them on tablets, some of them are on a Microsoft-based operating system, some of them they're using MacBooks. So we have to make sure that our students are getting access to the knowledge and to be able to apply it and to utilize what we're going to be teaching them in this current course in order to have hands-on projects. So in order to do so, we need to make sure that we use the Power BI service in order to help us learn about Power BI. And the things that we're going to be learning, they are easily utilized in Power BI desktop because they apply as is. Navigate directly to the following website, which is powerplatform.microsoft.com, which is right over here. Okay, let me just simply go through the tab again. I'm going to type in Power platform.microsoft.com. You can do the same thing with me in order to follow up. And why am I doing this? Because like I've said, I'm going to be sharing with you a way for you to get a free trial from 30 days to 60 days to actually tinker with these apps. Click on enter. Now you'll be directed to the actual Power Platform designated area within Microsoft. And here, once you click on products, you're able to see all of them, but the Power BI, Power Apps, Power Automate, Power Pages, Copilot Studio, where you need to have a company or an educational account. So how do we claim our free accounts? Simply click on Start Free over here. Here we go. Now we're going to have what we call the free trials page. You're going to select your free trial based on your own preference.
Welcome to the resources section of the current course. Think about this as your library. We're going to provide you with templates, some blueprints, some guides. You can just simply download them. Data sets you're able to download to help you practice and experiment with the various tools. In addition to, I'll be providing you with the link to get the free trial to help you get up and running with the practice. So make sure that you always keep an eye on these resources as they get developed, they get enhanced. And if we find that something is quite crucial that you need to have, we're going to update it as well, such that as you go through the course fully, you have a full comprehensive experience, which is quite essential for your overall learning journey. Your feedback matters. I would like you to take a moment to actually reflect on your current progress of the course and feel free to share your feedback, which will help our team to optimize your educational and learning experience. Make sure that you're actually consuming the lessons properly and effectively based on the structure that we have created for you in order to give you that push, to give you that support system to help you excel at an educational and professional level.
Welcome back. Now we're going to dive into one of my favorite Power Apps tools within the Power Platform, which is the Power BI. This is a great visualization tool for creating reports. And how do you go about it? Just simply you can go to the URL app.powerbi.com, click enter, and you're able to land on the home page. In this current lesson, we're going to navigate the layout for Power BI before we dive into building and creating reports and dashboards and getting to see the interface with in-depth details. So on the front page, we have the current display, which is just simply material to get you started, where you get to click on some samples. For example, if we click open, we get to see some visualizations to help us draw some inspiration when we are building our own reports or dashboards. Feel free to tinker with these just to have an idea. Then you do have the go-to option, which is create, in which you click on this to actually start building and creating your reports. Browse to take a look at any previous reports or dashboards. One Lake Data Hub is when you save data within your organization, for example, or you've added some material to be added in a certain place to manage that data. Apps is basically when you integrate some applications that could be added to the Power BI apps. Once you click on this, you can see there are different integrations that could go within your Power BI visualization, dashboards, and reports. Once again, these are on case to case basis since we are going through a generic approach to help us get up and running. Obviously, we're not going to go into every single app and how it integrates with all the cases within the world, which is quite not doable. So then we have metrics. It's a new addition which we're going to be covering later on, in which you create some key metric charts for certain performance metrics such as KPIs within your organization. Workspaces is when you are building a certain report or dashboard. It's better to create a workspace. That way, if anyone within your organization would like to go and take a look at it, then they have the ability to go access it and take a look at it and modify it. Then the workspace, my workspace, which is the space that I'm working at right now. Then you have the tables. In case you've added tables, you're able to see them. Also, you do have the untitled reports, is basically when you are going to build a report from scratch, and then you are going to you're going to actually visualize the data first. You add some visuals, and then you're going to connect the data with it. So if you've uploaded any data source, you'll be able to find it, and then you're going to map it here and modify it. If you're just simply getting started, you'll be able to find your first report here, or it's your first untitled report over here. So this is basically it in terms of the navigation. Now you have a clear idea. Obviously, there are many features for it to be covered. Once you click on the three dots, you have the monitor of the usage and the accessibility of the tool. And once you click at the bottom, you're able to actually navigate to other Power Platform related tools, which are once again quite advanced for this current context. And frankly speaking, they are not that handy since we're not going to be using them for the majority of the applications within the day-to-day activities of your organization, your company, or your personal use. As we are focusing on the core functionality and we're diving into the essentials that we need to know, and in case of any relevant updates that will be added to help us leverage our growth and take it to a different level. So that being said, we are good to go. We have a clear idea about the navigation, the general layout about Power BI platform. Now we are ready to dive deeper and start to get quite technical with building our reports and dashboards. Welcome back. Now we are ready to start building our reports to have some visualization to a data set. So the first thing we're going to do is we are going to navigate to create, click on create, and this will pop up for you. Add data to start building a report. Now this depends on your account. If you have a premium account, a company account, a school account, then you're able to do so. Otherwise, you have to manually add the data. Keep this as a side note. So you have the Excel option, CSV, paste the data manually, which is what we're going to be doing. I'm going to be sharing with you a sample data set. Feel free to download it and to use it to help you practice. Then you got pick a published semantic model, which is a model provided by your company. For example, if you're working on this with a team, they're going to have data sets which are going to be available within your organization as a whole, either here over OneLake, Data Hub, or as part of the tables. It's going to be present as part of a company structure where you have data which is provided to you or data which is accessible to many individuals. Now, for the usual cases, you have the Excel, CSV, and paste or manually enter. Now, both of these, for the regular trial version, they will not going to work, but I'm going to walk you through them to help you see how do they look like and how to navigate them. So once you click on an Excel data source, first of all, you have the option to link to a file. What does that mean? If you click on this and you put in a URL, if you find something on a website, for example, or if you have something stored on your drive, or you have something that you have spotted in the form of an Excel sheet on a different online a platform, and you're able to get the link for it, try to paste it over here, and it will collect the data for you. The other option is to actually upload the data, but since we're having a trial account, we cannot upload the file. So once you have a premium account or a business account, you are able to upload your Excel file directly. The other option is to link to a file online. The third option, which we are going to use, which does the same job, is manually uploaded. And once you do this automatically, the connection credentials are going to be verified over here to sign in order to establish a connection between a data source. For example, if you are trying to connect to your OneDrive directly, you need to verify this as well. That way you have access to the information. Now let's go to the CSV option. For the CSV option, the same logic as is. You need to find a path or upload a file, and then you have to establish the connection if you're going to connect it to your OneDrive, for example. The same logic follows. Finally, we have the paste or manually enter data option, which is the go-to option if you have a trial account. Over here, you have a certain layout, the same way it looks like an Excel, where you need to enter the data, and it will populate it in the form of a column. Now, at this current stage, make sure that you download the data provided to you in this segment of the course and upload it. And welcome back. Now, the first thing we're going to do is to actually add the data set. And like I've mentioned previously, Excel and CSV files, they're available directly to upload when you have a premium account. But with the basic account trial version, you have to manually add your data. And this is what we're going to do. It's quite straightforward, by the way. So now I'm going to paste the data that I have actually populated for you. Feel free to download your own copy to practice as well. Now, the data presented is basically for video games related to consoles, types of the games, the number of sales. It's a very powerful data set that you can tinker with. I provided for you a sample 100 data points where you have a total of 100 rows all the way here. And I'm going to be sharing with you as well about 1,000 more. That way you're able to take some data from it and to play with the interface such that you're able to practice by yourself as well. Keeping in mind, since once you're on a trial version, the data point limitation is there. It means you cannot add the full file where you have thousands of data, because once you click the report, nothing will happen. So this is very important to keep in mind in case when you're adding data on a trial version and you're not able to create the reports. Now, this is basically the format of any Excel file. But what you notice over here, we got the number of the columns, and then we got the titles of the columns, right? I would like to have the first row to be the title. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to click over here, use the first row as a header. So this is going to remove the previous row and just simply add the title. Why is this important? Because when you are displaying data visually on your reports, it's very important to have clear indicators about the data points. And it's very crucial at this stage to actually clean your data. What does that mean? When you are creating on a Power BI report, data should be easily understandable. So that's what I'm going to do right now. Here we got the title. Let's modify this. Game title. Okay, here we go. Then console. Then genre. Then we have publisher. Then we have developer. Then we got critique score, whether people liked it or not. Then we have total sales. Then we have basically, depending on various regions, different types of sales. North America, Japan, based on the various regions. Then you have any updates, you get release date, other sales. These are important. Let's keep it as is, because these are just simply sales numbers. They will not make a difference, but they help me understand the region. So release date, we're going to keep it as is. Last update, there's no harm in that. These are the key areas that I need to focus on. First, the total sales, the critique score, to give me some information. And this applies to your own case-to-case basis. So we have our data up and running. Now we are ready to click on the generation of the report part in order to see how could we navigate Power BI. Welcome back. So now we're going to click on auto create, and the whole purpose of this lecture is just simply for you to understand the elements of the Power BI reporting part to help you build your first report. So in the previous lesson, we have added our data source. In order for Power BI to work properly, you need to have data in order to make that happen. So either you have the option through the Dataverse or you upload this manually like we have done in the previous lesson. Now in this current lesson, we are going to explore the navigations before we actually get quite hands-on and to create our first report. Before we get to the creation part, you need to understand actually how to use the tools and what are the tools presented. In the previous lectures, we have learned about the interface over here and the various commands and categories that you can just simply select on. But the interface over here right now is going to change. Why? Because we are going to be building a report and we have tools that we need to use. Now we do have the prompt over here which says your report is ready, and we just simply click on to verify the report. And as you can see, we had the option to pre-select data. Why? Once we select data, which is important to us from the data tab over here, it will automatically make connections of the data. This is very important. It will make connections of the data to help us understand basically how data are reflected with respect to each other. Now, at an advanced stage, we will have a discussion. We'll have a preview. How could you actually create connections? But this is advanced at a later stage. For the current stage, it's satisfactory to have this fundamental or foundational knowledge to help you get started. So I'm going to be selecting the data which is important to me. For example, what is the console? Who is the developer? The critique score, the game title, the genre, the sales, the last update, and the different types of sales on the regions, and the total sales. And if you notice, when I'm selecting the data over here, this is the data tab. So anything that we have added in our columns, in the uploading part, in the data source, we have the ability to see all of the titles over here and everything which is related to that column. And then by default, you will notice I have what we call over here, these are called tiles. It's an actual tile which has been populated directly. And the whole thing is considered to be my own report. This is very important. So every single page that you create is considered to be a report. And that report, you could have one, this is one page, then I can have on another page, and another page, and another page. So I could have multiple pages within the same report, every single one of them reflecting certain amount of data. So if you notice over here, this is basically the general layout for the data set that I have. I can have the option to see the table. I have the option to actually edit. I can switch to edit mode in order to start editing my data. If I would like to edit my data, explore this data in order to take any one of them by itself. For example, I could take consoles over here and then take the developers over here. It will make connections for me based on the data I drag and drop. So if you take a look at choose data, it will tell you to arrange the data based on rows and column. And that way you're exploring specific data sets, not everything. Okay, I'm walking you through this for you to help you get some idea. Then you could save this and you can export this. We can go through this in details in the upcoming segments. But as of now, what you notice is once we have uploaded the data, we selected important data for us, and then we have the ability to see all the data columns which we have in our table. Some relationships have been populated already in front of us, Russ. So this is very important. I have the ability to click on filters to filter any data set. Take a look at the quick summary over here. Now at this current part, if I click on this, I have no ability to modify this. I cannot edit this. Why? Because it has been populated. So I need to go to the edit mode in order to start to tinker with these. But let's walk through the interface for every single tile to have a clear idea what we're dealing with. So if you notice over here, for example, I have the title, which is sum of other sales, which is this data set over here. We got other sales compared to the year, connected to the year, which is relevant information. That way, when you are scrolling through this, you have an idea what's happening every single year in terms of the sales. Then I have the option to set an alert in case something gets popped up, where something changes, for example, or anything that pops out, or something gets triggered. Let's say your team is working on this, and then you hit a number of millions of sales per year. That will send a notification to all your team members. So you have the ability, which is quite advanced, to set alerts as well. Now, that being said, we have the option to personalize this. What I mean by personalize this, if I click on this, I could change the elements present in every single tile. For example, the x-axis and the y-axis, I could change them. For example, the x-axis, which is over here, the y-axis, which is over here. Here we go. Now, I could change the x-axis to, let's say, the day. It changes completely. Now, last update, I could change this as well to remove the field completely. Then, on the y-axis, I would like to have the game title. Look what happens. So on a day, right, count of game title by day. So every single day, which games were sold? So I'm able to have that display for me, right? So this gives you an idea how could you modify this. For example, the legend part. Let's add a new legend, which gives me some details. If I have a certain element, let's say console, I'm going to add the consoles over here. This is the legend. It means anything which is on the graph. What does it mean? The color, the codes, etc. Then you have add small multiples. Let's add some multiples for the sales. You could see the increments for the sales count. For example, from one sale to another, it's 1, right? For the days, it's going as 0.01. So these are a bit advanced, and they go based on your situation, by the way. So you don't have to go through all of these details. They are not necessary, but the further you go ahead and you start to build your course or to build your report during the course of your design, you have to be careful with the process. Why? Because when you are getting your data, it is very important that you make sense of the data. And this is the whole part of the connections to keep in mind. So if you have, for example, created connections which are not proper, it says error fetching data for this visual. So I need to modify this. So I'm going to go for example, critique score. And how about we go for the developer? You need to make sense of the data. That way, when you are presenting it to your company, for example, actually you're able to make sense of it. And if in case such a visual makes no sense, then you have the option to change the visual type. So instead of a line chart, you have the ability to try different items, as we are going to see next. For example, let's switch this to a pie chart. And here you go. Now you have a different visual display. And the same logic applies to every single one of those tiles. So this report has been generated by default. Like we got in this report when we uploaded our data. We did not build it from scratch, even though we have the ability to go on create and then just simply create a blank report and start building the tiles and connecting the data. Now, this is not favorable. Why? Because you're going to waste a lot of time. This is the case. Now, I can see the data table as well to take a look at the information which has been connected. This is very, very powerful. This is the data set that we have actually uploaded. You could see the game title, the console, the genre. If I click on it, it will adjust every single point. Here we go, based on the game. It will show me the implications. This is very pro. This is very powerful. When you are clicking on the show or hide the data table, it's very important to become a professional in this, where you visualize the data and then you represent the data, which is your core data set. This is very powerful. And if you click on any one of them, you're able to see it within the grand scheme of things. This is very powerful. So at this current lesson, we're just simply getting into the interface. We are focusing on the relevant details. We are going to ignore the stuff which do not make a difference, which are advanced and based on specific cases which might not cater to the 90% of the population. Because frankly speaking, what we need to do, since we are going for a no code, zero code, low code approach, we need to utilize these tools to their full potential in a fashion which makes sense to our application, right? So since the majority of the individuals concerned with this current course, they are not code dependent. They'd like to have a straightforward solution up and running without getting too much into the depth of the coding part, but getting the best out of it. Because at the end of the day, the whole Power Platform is based on the concept of no code or low code. So so there's no point in going to tinker with the codes and tinker with the extensive elements which fall beyond our daily application. This is what we're trying to achieve in this current course, to help you acquire 90% of the skills for Power Platforms with fraction of the time. That way you're able to get up and running and get up to speed with this new highly powerful platform, which will change the way you go about your personal activities and your business. So in this current case, we have learned how we could actually add our data to connect the data that we would like to see. By simply clicking on this, I'm able to regenerate the report to include all of the elements that I would like to be present in this current report. Yes. Then we've explored some basic ideas about the navigation tabs at the top. Then how could we see the data and how it gets affected? How could we change what we call as tiles? These are tiles, and every single tile, I have the ability to set an alert for the premium version to notify anyone in case of an update. Then I have the ability to export the data, by the way, and can show it in the table. I can spotlight this. Take a look at this, just simply to showcase only this part over here. And then I could modify this in terms of the visuals, the legend, the values, the details on a tile by tile basis. So now at this current stage, you are ready. You are ready to actually dive into building your first report. You have a clear idea, you have a clear foundation, or you have a clear perception. How would you navigate this? So once we're done with this part, which is right now, we're going to transition to building our first report. In order to be able to build the visuals for our data, to create a report, to create a dashboard, because at the end of the day, the whole point is to model and visualize the data for the best analysis as part of data analytics, right? This is the whole point of using Power BI in the first place. So how do we go about building our report? How do we go about building our dashboards? And before we go into the practical step-by-step application where we are going to be building a report and a dashboard together, we need to understand the tools that we have, the visualizations that we have. How could we select the best ones for our cases? How could we modify them? How could we alter them? So we have what we call as the canvas over here. This is the canvas. Think about it like the slate in which you are going to add the visuals or the tiles. Now take a look at these segments over here. Here you have your data, which includes your data source. Here you got the visualizations, the different types of visuals that we are going to build. This is what we're going to go through one at a time to see what are the best fit options for our cases, and the filters. Now for the segments of filters and slicers, we're going to be dealing with them separately, but we need to build the foundational level. So I click on the data over here first. If you take a look at this, all of these are the columns that we have already added to our data sources. It's very important when you are trying to work with your data. You could modify the data model over here, but it's a good idea from the get-go when you are building your data sets, imported the data source, whether an Excel sheet or a live sheet, whatever it is. Make sure that you give some time to get your tables, your columns arranged in the best way possible, cleaned in the best way possible, in order to get the visuals to reflect what you're looking for specifically. In other words, make sure that the data makes sense and it's useful. Now, the first visual that we're going to be learning about is the stacked bar chart. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be adding the stacked bar chart, and I'm going to fill up my entire tile over here, just simply to understand how it works and how do we go about using it. If you take a look at the visuals, once you click on a certain visual, you have the representation for the visual. What are the elements which are included? You have the y-axis, which represents the vertical line over here. You got the x-axis, which represents the horizontal line over here. So before you add data to these fields, think about what are you trying to achieve. Now let's test this out. So for the y-axis, since we're going to go through an example where we utilize sales reports for video games across various video games, as you're going to see in the practical step-by-step example. So I'm going to be using this information for demonstration at this current stage. And once you are up to that level of doing the examples and the practical guide, you're able to download the data and you are able to use it in order to help you build the reports from scratch. So let's go for the data that we have already added as part of our data source. Now, if you are wondering how would I've gotten the data in the first place, there's nothing to be concerned about at this current stage, because I'm showing you only the visuals. The whole purpose is for you to understand these visualizations. And then I'm going to show you how would you get your data up and running, how to incorporate building your report, how to build your dashboards. So we're going to go at this one level at a time. That way you're finding it quite easy to apply. So let's say I would like to have, for example, on the y-axis over here, I'm going to have the game title. I'm going to drag it. Notice what happens over here. I got the game title, but I do not see any data. Because I have a bar chart, I need to fill the x-axis as well. Let's say I would like to go for the total sales. So I'm going to drag this over here. So I got the total sales per game title. Take a look at the x-axis, sum of the total sales, the y-axis, the game title. And as you can see, I have the names of the video games, and I'm able to see the number of sales per video game. Now, this is a great visual. I'm able to modify my tiles and change the sizes. And as you get to see, as we're going to build our report, I have the ability to add many of these visualizations, stacking them the way I see fit to represent my data. But we're learning the visual tiles one at a time. So I do have in front of me right now the presentations for the stacked bar chart, but I would like to modify it. Now, I could have small multiples to represent, let's say, for example, the release date. Let's add this over here. Now, I've added the release date to represent the data over here. And as you can see, it altered the representation of the chart where I'm having quarters now because I included all of the data. So I'm going to remove this. How about we add another critique score, which is very important, small multiples. Look what happens over here. So you're able to combine the x-axis, the y-axis with a further representation or segmentation of the data based on critique score. So I have the games with such a critique score over here. And at the bottom, I'm able to reflect the sales for such games, including the critique score. So I'm showing you the horizons in that case. What are you trying to achieve? Now, what is a tooltips data? So when I click on this or I hover over the tile, if I'm going to add, for example, the total sales over here, whenever you publish this and you hover, you're going to see a small text being displayed. This small text being displayed is what we call as the tooltip, where you add information to help people just simply hovering over the tile see what it represents. Now, we've understood now the representation for the stacked bar chart, but I would like to modify it even further, right? Since let's say you're working for a project or you're doing something that requires your own unique visuals, it's up to you. But we selected our visuals. I'm going to hover now to format your visuals. This is where we actually fix up the themes. We take a look at it, how it's going to be represented. Now we got the y-axis and we got the x-axis. Now for the y-axis, we have what we call as an actual text based. So we're going to click on the title if I would like to change it. So for the y-axis, we have the values, we got the colors. Let's increase the size, for example, to 10. And I'm going to change the color to, if you'd like to go for red. And then the width, you're able to modify this as you please. Then let's take a look at the title. It says auto. Auto represents the name of the column. How about we go for game titles of the year. This is one. If you notice what happened when I selected this, it shifted it over here. And then I'm going to click on the layout. You're able to increase or decrease the category height. See what happens, right? You can minimize them, how they look like. Then for the x-axis, I could do the same approach. This includes values. For example, you toggle this on or off. Notice what happens. The numerical values, they go on and off. Now I'm going to show you how you could reflect the currencies, because at the end of the day, this is the total sales, right? It should reflect a certain numerical figure, which is the currencies. So we're fixing the visuals, right? Now we go for the title. I'm going to go for the total sales, which was reflected over here. Now, feel free to do the edits the way that you'd like them to happen based on your own preferences. Now, let's go for the grid lines. I don't want to have any grid lines. Zoom slider is helpful. I'm going to toggle this to be on. And look what happens over here. When you drag this, you're able to zoom in on the data. Notice what happens with the x-axis. It zooms in on the data. This is very helpful if you have a lot of data. You could add ribbons if you'd like, just simply to add some visuals, data labels. When you click on this, it adds the numerical values for every single one of these bars. That way you do not have to look at the x-axis and try to figure it out by yourself. It's very helpful. Now, the playground, the background, you're able to add an image. You're able to change the colors. It's up to you. So this is how we modified the visual, right? Now, let's say I would like to fix up certain elements of the x-axis and the y-axis. So we've added the title, which is the sum, and we could add the background colors if we'd like. So we're going to remove this part. We've already settled the title, which is the sum of the total sales by game tile. But I would like to have it placed somewhere in the middle. Here we go. So it got shifted over here. Then subtitle. If you'd like to have a subtitle, it's up to you. Then you have a divider. You're able to add this. Then if you're able to modify the spacing between the title and the dividers, then you have the ability to add a background if you'd like. Take a look at this. It's up to you to modify them the way that you'd like to. That's why I'm showing you at this current stage the options that you have for every single visual. You could add a visual border or a shadow. For example, let's remove the borders and you add a shadow. It looks like this. If I click on this, let's go for the shadows. Here we go. Zooms, ribbons, data labels. Okay. We got the sliders. We got the general. Header icons. Data format. This is something we're going to do right now. We got the titles. Spacings. Shadows. Add some shadow. It will help it just simply add some sort of a card visual to it. But what you need to keep in mind is the data format. This is very, very crucial. We would like to our data to be reflected in the best way possible. So apply settings to the game title or the sum of the total sales. It's up to you. Now for the game title, it's by name, so we don't have to do anything about it. But for the total sales, we need to change this to an actual numerical figure, like dollars, currency. So we get currency over here, dollars, for example. And notice what happens. Now you're able to make sense of the data. See, by simply just doing basic modifications to the visuals, you are able to reflect the data in the best way possible. Now, obviously, there are many more tweaks that you could do, and I've walked you through a lot of them as you go about building your own data. You're able to reset all the settings, by the way, to default in case you have changed your mind about anything along the way where you would like to fix that problem. You can just simply click on the reset. So at this current stage, we have seen the stacked bar chart from a simple visual representation, how you could modify it, how you could fix up the theme a bit, how you could reflect the x-axis and the y-axis and the figures in order to represent your data. Now we're going to transition to other visuals. That way you are able to have some understanding about the possibilities with your own data. Because if we dive into building your reports and diving into your dashboard, you will learn the skill sets or the elements which are utilized for a certain data set. But for your own case, it could vary. So it's very important for you to be familiar with all of the potential visuals that you could use. That way, you're able to tweak them, modify them the way that you see best fit. Now, let's transition to the next lesson. Let's take a look at another visual that you could use, which is the stacked column chart. So I'm going to be adding the stacked column chart, and the same way I'm going to extend it to help us understand how it's used and how could we modify it. So once we go for the stacked column chart, you click on it, notice what happens over here. You are able to see the same representation. So for every single visual that you click, it has its own field that you're going to populate. You go to the table and feel free to alter whatever parameters that you have, and you can take a look at the resources section as well. If you feel that you're ready actually to start tinkering with this, download the data set that I've provided you with, upload it, and try to mimic the actions that I'm doing. That way you're able to understand how to navigate Power BI before building the report, before building the dashboard. We're equipping you with the skill set from the ground level up. So I'm going to try now to go for the total sales, let's say for the y-axis. However, I'd like to have the developer or the console. Here we go. So if you notice, for example, we got the sum of total sales. I got this for the y-axis and the console and the x-axis. If you take a look at the consoles, you have a PS3, X360, PS4, and you're able to see the sum of the total sales for every single one of these consoles. But you might be wondering, how could I use the data, right? So let's add some legends to it, add fields here. How about we add the publisher? Notice what I've added at the top, how it altered the visual representation. Think about the legend as the visual filter in that sense, visual insight. Here, I have the PS3, X360, all of them compiled, right? But the companies or the publishers who are publishing for the PS3 or Xbox 360, PS4, they are different companies. So how would I be able to segment my data? So I'm able to add, for example, let's say the game title, the developer who developed the game as a legend. And look what happens, for example. You get the developer at the top, and you're able to see the color code for these developers, which adds further level of complexity to your data. You could add the genre, for example. Here we go. See what happens? If you take a look at the color green, let's say these are the shooter games, first-person shooters like Call of Duty, for example. You can see that they accompany for the majority of the sales. And this is what we call as the tooltip, by the way. See the icon? Once I go over here and I hover at the data, and I'm able to see that a pop-up will come up on the surface of the tile. This is what we call as a tooltip, right? So I'm able to see the genre of the data. I'm able to select, by the way, this. When I select a certain legend, I'm able to filter the data. Let's say I'm interested in learning about sports games. So if I click on this, I could see the sales based on console for every sport game in that case. So this adds another level of drilling, let's say, for the data, where you have certain parameters and you could layer another one as a legend which helps you make sense of your data even more and to actually get more out of the data. Try to get more out of the surface levels of just simply total sales and console. Let's say you'd like to learn about not just simply the sales and the console, but what is the genre of the games based on that data. Or how about the critique score? This is very powerful. Here we go. Take a look at the critique score. These are the various critique scores. If you'd like to filter data, games which got a critique score more than 9, you click on this and you notice you got these segments of the games based on these consoles who made such sales, for example. So it's very powerful to use the stacked column chart to layer up your data. You build up the x-axis, you build up the y-axis, and you add the legends which are clickable in order to navigate further insights of the data. So this concludes it for our understanding of stacked column chart. Now let's proceed to the other visuals. And now let's try to go about the clustered bar chart. If you click on this, instead of going for a vertical representation or graphics, we're going to go for a horizontal, and we're going to follow the same approach. Now, what you select for your visuals depends on the data that you have. This is very important. Some data are better represented through plots. Some of them are represented through bar charts. Some of them are represented through numerics. So that's why it's very important to understand what you have and how to go about this. So for this current demonstration, we're going to go for the total sales on the x-axis. And then I'm going to add the developer on the y-axis. Now, keeping in mind, as you go about this, it's very important to make sure that you're filling both the y-axis and the x-axis. And what you notice is that the clustered bar chart some sort of looks quite similar in the sense for the stacked bar chart, which is quite understandable. But the stacked bar chart, the clustered, has the ability to include a lot more data compared to the stacked bar chart. The stacked bar chart will represent data through segments on the lines. So if you take a look at the stacked bar chart, these lines, the blue lines, they could be broken down to further visuals. However, the clustered bar chart will include everything that you have back to back. Let me show you how does that look like. Let's remove the total sales over here, or let me add something else. How about the game title? Here we go. So I've added the game title at the bottom. Look what happened. When I added the game title on the x-axis, it added also another bar, right? So that way you're able to see things hand in hand. But if I do the same thing with the stacked bar chart, these lines, the ones at the bottom, are going to be reflected on top, but the bar will change its color. They do the same purpose, but it depends on your case. Which visual representation are you fine with? Now, this is for the x-axis. You could add other layers as well. Here you go. Let's say the genre. Look what happens now. That way, you're able to see the sales based on the game, and you're able to see the count of the game for the title, how much have been sold, and the genre. When you click on this, for example, count of the game, I'm able to filter this. Genre, you're able to filter this as well. So that way, you have layered analysis of the data that you have. Again, it's up to you. Now, let's take it one level further. Let's add the console to the legend. Look what happens to the data that we have over here. Now, if I go to the legend, notice I'm not able to drag and drop it. Why? Because my data is already stacked up, right? Clustered. Now, let's try to go for something else. How about the publisher? Go for the legend. It's not going to work. Why? Because your data is actually clustered. If I try to move the count of the genre to the field, it's not going to work. Now, let's go for something less congested. Now, if you add the legend to it, still, it's not going to work. Why? Because the data is already, it's a clustered bar chart. So there's no point of having the legend at the top because the legend alters the colors, right? And once it alters the colors, you're able to add it, and then it will be reflected on the bars that you have. So you see how these small tweaks, they're able to change how you visualize the data. Now, you might be wondering, this is quite too small. How would I go about this? Take a look at the buttons at the top. You have the ability to spotlight this. For if you have multiple tiles, once you click on this, you're able to zoom on onto this. And I have the ability as well to explore this data by itself. If you click on this, you're able to see the data that you have utilized. You can zoom in and take a look at the tables which you have used at the beginning in order to explore the data. That's one approach. Or you have the ability as well to click on this. You have learned this so far. You click on the format, the visuals. Then I have the zoom slider. Then here you go. You're able to zoom the data, zoom in, and zoom out, right? Keep that in mind. So as you're going through the lectures, make sure that you are applying what we are learning. Try to apply it. Download the data set that we have, which is going to be used to build our report, but try to tinker with this. Obviously, you're not going to get this from the first time, but it's very important to go about this. Now, if I would like to add more insights to my data, you go to data labels, click on this. Now, I'm going to alter the values. For example, if you'd like to add a certain value for the data, you could alter the layout. This is part of the visual. We have went through it, but obviously there are more settings that you could tinker with. Go for the general, click on the data format. This is very helpful that you need to be familiar with, because at the end of the day, you're going to be dealing with numerical figures mainly. So sum of the total sales, count of the game title, the developer. I'm going to apply this to the sum of the total sales. What is the format? It's going to be a currency. Here we go. And once I click on this, this will be reflected on my report. This is very important to know, because often students, they tend to miss this part. They got tiles filled with numbers and they have no idea if we're going to be sharing this with their colleagues or with their managers, whatever it is. What do these numbers represent? So how do you go about this? You go to the general tab, you click on the data format. This is very important. Now the other stuff, these are visuals, right? They represent certain elements. This is how we tinker with the visuals to make it easier for people to navigate, for you to navigate. But you could test this by yourself, but it's important to understand how to make your data reflect what it's intended to reflect. This is the whole purpose of using Power BI. So we have learned how to go about the clustered bar chart. Now let's take a look at a different option as well, as we are learning about these visuals. Now we are going to be talking about the various visualizations options, obviously, but since they are quite numerous, we'll be quite selective with the ones which are crucial to be familiar with. And for later segments and for later lectures, definitely we'll be having some insights on any additional updates or any additional visuals that could be helpful that you need to be familiar with. Look at one of the most important visualizations that you need to be familiar with, which is the line chart. So a line chart, literally, it's quite familiar and popular to many, and it's very powerful to represent or model the data. So once you click on the line chart over here, you're going to have the same display for the x-axis, y-axis. Notice we have a secondary y-axis, which literally layers in another y-axis over here. We got the legend, but it's not going to filter data because it's a line, so it's not going to be applicable in this current case. Then you got the tooltip, if you'd like to represent a certain display once you hover about this. And I'm going to show you a very powerful measure to have. So how are we going to navigate this? First of all, before you use a visual, think about the data that you would like to represent. Let's say I would like to represent the total sales on the y-axis. And for the x-axis, the best thing to use is something continuous, like time. Because if we're drawing a line, over a period of time, you're going to see the visual's full potential. Let me show you how. So for the x-axis, I'm going to go for the release date. Notice the data that I have for the release date has a drop down. Why? Because it includes different sub-rows, different dates, different timelines. So when I put on the x-axis, take a look at this, I got the year, the quarter, the month, and the day, right? So my release date is broken down to various segments. I could remove the day over here. It alters the data. I could remove the quarter. It changes the data. So I got my month and year as part of my data and the sum of the total sales for the y-axis. Now I'm going to fix up the data just simply to make sure it reflects the numerical figures format for the sum of total sales is going to be the currency. I've changed this to dollars. I got the dates over here. Now I'm going to apply this for the release date of the month. It's going to be a number, which is already the case that we have, so we don't need to fix this. Then navigate back. So if I'd like to add a legend, it's not going to work because adding a legend over here, it's not going to help me much. Take a look at what's going on, right? It's actually confusing in this sense. You're able to see segments based on certain parameters, but it doesn't meet the purpose of the line. Feel free to use it, by the way. Like when I say it doesn't work, it doesn't mean technically it doesn't work. It means from visual data representation, it's not very helpful unless you choose something which makes sense. How about the console? Let's add this as a legend. Notice over here, the visual representations slightly go hand in hand with the sales and the date because they're able to mimic the behavior. So if I click on one of them, PS5, PS2, PS3, you're able to make sense of the data. Or you can just simply remove this and you just allocate the sales per year and make sense of the visuals that you have. Notice what's popping up on the screen, which is the sum of the total sales, the numbers over here. If I click on the drill up, I'm able to layer the information that I have based on the date. I got the month, the year, and the release date. So when I'm taking a look at the information that I have the ability, what I call this, to drill up or drill down. Let's click on this, drill down. Okay, here we go. Now, look what happens. So this is the lowest level of the data. I've arranged my data based on year and month, right? So month is the lowest level of data. Look what happened. November, October, September, August, May. See what's going on over here? Now, let's go up. Now it fixed it based on year. This is very powerful. That's why I told you at the beginning, make sure that you're using data which makes sense to use. So for the x-axis, for the line chart, it's very important to go for the continuous data, which has the ability to be drilled down. So what do I mean by drilled down? Literally, if you take a look at the option over here, add drill through fields. What does that mean? Take a look at the data over here. When I click on this, it shows me that my years or my date hierarchy includes years, month, quarter, days. So if I select all of them, and I'm going to drag all of the data to the, let me drag it to the drill through. Here we go. Look what's happening. I have the ability now to drill through the data, either to summarize the data or categorize the data. So if I click on Tuesday, for example, it pinpoints that specific sale per that specific time. If I click on certain elements over here, it will modify it accordingly. This is part of drilling down, where you're able to think about it like you're zooming in the data, right? So here you have the ability to drill mode is on. If you click on this, by the way, always when you have the ability to drill, take a look at these at the top, okay? So drill up, because there's no room to drill up at this current stage. Let's go for drill mode is on. Click on the data point to drill. Now click to drill down. So I'm trying to drill down based on the data that I have, which I've already done, by the way. I've selected one over here. So I'm going to remove this and go to the next level in the hierarchy. Here we go. I zoomed in. Quarter. Zoom in. Month. Zoom in. Day. You get the idea, right? So when you have the ability to drill through the data, it gives you more of a perspective. Now I'm going to add the release date, and I'm going to follow the same approach. Go on the next level. Here we go. Now I have removed it to clear any selections that I had before. Once you have a selection, you need to be careful with the icons at the top, because they are not going to be overridden by they are going to be overridden by the selections, and they cannot override the selections. So make sure that before you select the buttons at the top, that you actually clear this out, clear the complete drill down option. That way you have all of the data. Notice now I have selected the release for all of the data. You have the ability now to click on drill down. Drill mode is on. Here we go, drill up, drill up, drill up. So we go to the year, drill down, drill down, drill down. You have the ability to go to the month and the quarter. So this basically helps us enable the drill down option. Here I go up, here you go down, right? So you click on the button over here to enable the drill down option. Then drill up and drill down. Once you go about drilling down, it means you are zooming in the data. And take a look at the display over here. This is what we call as the tooltip hover. Once you are moving or hovering over a certain data point, you have this visual, which is the sum of the total sales at this current case based on the a month, based on the day. If I'd like to go for the month, here we go. You can see a trend over here. Let's go for another drill up for the quarter. Take a look at the year. Notice what's happening over here. You are literally dissecting your data. You have the ability to analyze the data based on the year, based on the day, based on the month. So it's very, very powerful to know how to tinker with the line charts. And that's what we have done over here. So we were able to add some continuity to the x-axis by adding what we call as drill down data. You have the ability to zoom in into the data set. This is what's happening at the column or the table level. So if you would like to add such ability to drill down, make sure at the beginning of the data source integration, your column reflects these parameters. The release date, you have the year, the quarter, the month, and the day. And like I've mentioned, once we are diving into building the report together, building the dashboard together, you are going to use the data set that I've provided you with, and you could use it right now as well to help you either tinker with the tiles. And if you are not ready to dive in yet, it's important to have at the back of your mind how these visuals could help you out. Because once we get to building the report from scratch, you are able to draw some inspiration. You're able to modify the report. You might have some your own unique insight based on your own situation instead of following a solid methodology, of a solid step-by-step without any room for innovation. On the contrary, you'll be provided with both the step-by-step practical example, and these lessons will help you drive the innovation for your own specific case and for your own specific application. Now let's take a look at another visual which is very helpful to learn about. Now let's learn about a very powerful combination visual, which is the line stacked column chart or line and clustered column chart. Both of them, they work just fine in terms of representing a combination of the lines visual and the charts visual. It combines literally both of them to help us make sense of the data. But it's important to keep in mind when we are using it, we need to visualize at the back of our minds how the data is going to be represented. Why? Take a look at the display for the visual. We got the x-axis for the columns, and we got the y-axis for the columns. Then we have the lines y-axis, which is the y-axis for the line. Then we got the column legends, we got the tooltips, and the drill down option as well. So here's a pro tip. For the x-axis, in order to get the best output from this, to get the best out of your data, include a continuous element. What do I mean by continuous? Something like time. For example, sales, this is not continuous. We're not talking about currency, dollars, $1.5. No, we're talking about the number of sales. You cannot have 1.5 sales. It's either you got one sale or two sales. So these values, which we call them as discrete, they cannot go on the x-axis. You can put them on the y-axis. The best option to have for the x-axis for such visuals is time. For example, hours, a month, seconds, up to you. So I've added on the x-axis all of the time elements, including the year, quarter, month, and day, as part of the columns buildup that I've had. And for the x-axis, for the y-axis, I've added the total sales to be corresponding to the x-axis. If we take a look over here, for the x-axis, I got the years. X-axis, I got the total sales. And as we have learned so far, if I would like to modify the format, click on General, Data. For the sales, I'd like it to be, the format to be a currency. Here we go. So I fixed this up, and now it's good to go. We go back to the visuals. You could add a zoom slider in order to help you navigate through the data. And you could add data labels to help us show at every single bar that we have what are the numerical figures. Think about it as ways to help you fine tune your data. Now, if I'd like to have any sort of an effect on my data, let's say shadows, to help us have some shadows for the tile. Here you go, you can see the shadows. You can add borders, it's up to you. Then you can tinker with the background. This is part of the theme aspects that you could go about in order to fix up the visual representation of your data. But we're not done yet. We've added our columns, but this is a line bar chart, right? So we need to add a line. So I'm going to have the y-axis to represent the total sales as well. Look what happens over here. You're able to see the pattern, right? This is very powerful. We included the columns. We included the data labels. We've included the lines in order to represent any patterns. And let's take it one level further. Let's say I would like to add a legend in order to dive into the data even more to see certain elements. In this current case, I got the year of the sale and the total sales, right? Let's say I would like to have the console. So I'm going to add it to the legend. Look what happens over here. So you got the legend at the top, and you're able to click on this to filter out specific elements from your data. So you have your consoles. Now you add the color label as part of the legend to help you see any specific patterns as part of the legend. So think about legends as the color layers which are related to your data. Now let's remove this. How about the drill through? What do I mean by drill through? Like I mentioned, you got the option to drill through the data from the top over here, or you could add the data to be drilled over here. Now, for the sake of convenience, I'm going to use the icons to go about this. And keeping in mind, when you are drilling through data, it means you are zooming into the data or zooming out of the data. This is the best way to think about it. So I'm going to click on this to drill down the data. And what I'm going to do is go to the next level in the hierarchy based on year, quarter, month, and day. This is the hierarchy that I have. Now we go for the next level. We got quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3, and quarter 4. This is a perfect representation for sales per quarter. Business analysts, entrepreneurs, company owners, accountants, finance managers, they would love to see such data. You got the quarters, and you're able to see the growth per quarter. This is very powerful. Let's go even further. Let's go to the next level. Per month, perfect. Even further, per day. So you're able to go into the data through levels. This is what we call as the drill down option. And that's why I've dedicated this lesson on the power of line and bar charts, because you're able to see a lot of information. You're able to stack up a lot of data sources in order for you to be able to make sense of your data and to visually represent your data in the best way possible. But we are not done yet. We're adding visuals to your tools box. That way, when we get to the point we're building our reports and we combine a lot of stuff together, you have the ability to get innovative, to actually create your own visuals based on your own unique circumstances in the best way possible. Let's say I would like to shift from the line and stacked column chart to a line and clustered column chart. Obviously, I don't have to delete the data and re-input the data. And by the way, take a look at the hover options. Once you hover over the data, you're able to see the items. Like we have mentioned, this is when once you toggle the on and off option, you're able to see this, and you have the ability to drill down as well, just simply as a pro tip, how you interact with the visual. Now, that being said, if I would like to switch from the align and stacked column chart to a clustered column chart, simply click on your tile and then click on the different visual that I would like to have. Notice what happened over here. My x-axis remained the same, my y-axis remained the same. However, the line for the y-axis got shifted. So I'm going to be adding the sum of the total sales to my line for the y-axis. And you might be wondering, this looks quite similar. Well, it does, because the cluster time chart and the stacked charts, they are quite different in the sense of how many columns we are stacking together. How? Let's say for the sum of the total sales, I would like to add something next to it. Let's say the game title. So I'm going to drag this over here and take a look what happens. So by doing so, we were able to represent our data by adding other columns. Let's take it one level further. Add the publisher. Here we go. Add the genre. Here we go. So you're able to see the sales. You're able to see the genre of the game title, the publisher, by adding these columns. This is what we call as the stacked columns, right? So that way you're able to layer up your data. You're able to add levels of the analysis by simply swapping from one line stacked column chart to line and clustered a column chart with a simple click. Welcome back. Now we're going to take a look at one of my favorite visuals, which is the funnel. It helps us investigate a certain category by taking a look at the segments within the category. Once you click on the funnel over here, you're able to have the following display: category and the values. So for the category, think about it, which parts of your funnel that you're going to be investigating by relating it to a certain parameter. What does that mean? Let's say I'm investigating the developers, and what are the critique scores obtained by the developers based on the critique score? Here we go. These are the values. Take a look at this, for example. So we have the various developers on the left-hand side. And as you can see, I'm having the critique score displayed over here, where you're able to allocate that. For example, if I hover over here, that the following developer has a critique score of 77.9, which is, let's say, out of 100%, which has the highest critique scores compared to other developers. And if you go over here, it has the lowest critique score compared to other developers. So what I'm doing is I'm taking a look at the developer, which is represented on the side over here, and what are the scores obtained to be represented in the funnel. Let's use a different case. Instead of the developer and the critique score, how about the developer and the sales? Here we go. So here I got the sum of the total sales, how many sales took place. I can see the developers and the number of sales. You could hover over here and you can see how many sales took place, giving you the top of the funnel all the way to the bottom. That way you're able to see the maximum and the minimum, which is very powerful to help you make sense of the data that you have based on a certain category. Let's change the category from the developer. How about we add the game title? So I have the ability now to add the game title and then compare it to the sum of the sales. But if you notice, the game title was not represented over here. Let's go for a different element. How about the console? Here we go. So we got the PS3, X360, PS4, PS2, and you have the ability to take a look at the total sales based on every single one of them. You could click on this. And by the way, if once we have placed the game title, we weren't able to see it because we didn't zoom in into the data, because we have a lot of data. Because once we zoom in, we could enable the zoom in toggle, or you could click over here and you have the ability to explore this data as a preview, or you go for spotlight mode. For spotlight mode, you're able to focus on the data, focus mode as well. You're able to see the data, and you're able to zoom into the data. You got the sum of the total sales per console, and then you go back to the report. In case when you're tinkering with this, you're not able to see the labels over here, this is some sort of a bypass option that you could use. Instead of the console, how about we go for something else? Let's go for the publisher. Here we go. So we got the publisher, and then we got the number of sales for every single publisher. How about the critique score? The publishers, what are the critique scores gotten by these publishers? Here we go. Notice what we have over here. So we're comparing the critique scores. This is a sum of the critique scores, all of them compiled. Now, the value might not make perfect sense to you because when you have a critique score, I don't want to have the sum, right? I would like to have the actual value or the count, how many times, or the average will look great, or the maximum. Let's take a look at the maximum. Here we go. You're able to rank based on the maximum critique score that they have gotten. You're able to go for the distinct count, how many critique scores, like good ones they have taken, for example, or you have the ability to go for the median, which is, let's say, the middle value, or you can go for the average, which works perfectly fine in this current case because once you have a lot of critique scores, you take the average, you're able to get the average value, which is a good representation. And by the way, once you are selecting the values, instead of sticking to a certain value, you have the ability to sum, minimum, maximum, count, standard deviation, variance, median. All of these for the advanced users, they could be incorporated as part of DAX operations, where you use formulas such as Excel in order to do these things. So instead of learning about how to come up with these functions and formulas, especially if you are using the desktop option for the Power BI, you have the option over here. You can just simply go to the values and you click on the drop down menu and you can just simply change what would you like to do for the column that you're using. For critique score, I don't want to use the average, I want to use the maximum or the minimum. So you have the ability to just simply with a click modify this instead of going to DAX and coming up with a function to add it to your column to do this. And by the way, this is for the advanced users. Like I mentioned, we're dealing with the foundational level at this current stage, and at a later stage, whenever you feel like you're ready to move further with your development with Power BI, you could tackle the functions that could be added to Power BI, which is something to be covered at a later stage. Now, that being said, this is another important visual that you could add to your tools box, which is the funnel. One of my favorite visuals, which is the pie chart. You go over here, click on the pie chart. This is very powerful. Often on PowerPoints, any statistics, pie chart is the go-to option, right? So it's important to know about this. Now, once you click on the pie chart, you have the legend, which is the color categories. You got the values, and let's take a look at the details over here. For example, if I'd like to have the values I'm dealing with, the total sales, this is the full pie, right? Now, I'm going to classify the total sales based on the game title. I'm going to drag this over here, and all of a sudden, you have a legend, a color code, and you got yourself a full-on pie, which is broken down based on every single category. See how powerful and convenient this is? This is very, very important. You could add also details such as the publisher details based on a certain game title, such that when you are hovering over a certain element or you're clicking on a certain element, it incorporates these details. Publisher details, how about we go for the genre? You could add the genre, and notice what happens. It changes the color. Maybe you didn't spot this. Let's remove this over here. Here we go. And let's add, for example, the developer. Notice what happens to the pie chart. It changes, right? How about the console? Here we go. It changes. The percentages are changing because you are including details which affect the percentage within the pie chart. So the category that you have a certain value, which is the slice of the pie, and then that slice is further categorized based on a console. So this is something you could add for later on. If I remove this, look what happens. Notice the effect. Here we go. The percentages changed, right? So it depends on your preferences and how you'd like to navigate the data. So you have the ability to select based on a certain category from the pie itself or from the legend itself. And once you're done, click on the tile to go back. However, if I'd like to change it to something else, instead of the sum of the sales, let's keep it to something which is quite usable in this current case. Critique score. Here you go. You're able to see the score for every single game, which is very powerful. And if you would like to change how this is represented, what do? We go over here to the format, the visuals. We got the legend. You can toggle this on and off. It's up to you. Then you have the slices. You're able to change the colors for every single one of those slices. Again, it's up to you to go about this. Then details label. If you would like, how do you position the details label? Let's say outside. This is the category that we have mentioned that we add in the field. This is the part over here. Here you go. This is the details part, the details field. So once you add a details field, you're able to see the visuals. I can just simply toggle this off and I toggle this on, right? So we have the ability to incorporate details on our pie chart based on any level that we have. Then label the contents, data value, a single number, percent of the total, category and data. This is very important. Category and percent, data value and percent of the total. This works great. How about this? Category and percent of the total. Usually when you go about pie charts, often you categorize the slice and what is the percentage of this. This is very, very powerful. And let's say the visuals are satisfactory at this current stage. I don't want to alter the values and or any other representations. How about the rotation of the chart? It's up to you. You can just simply rotate this. You can see how it goes about clockwise or counterclockwise. And how about removing the legends because I've added more details? Take a look at the pie chart now, very comprehensive. I have the ability now to select anything on my pie chart and I'm able to see the details. And if you'd like to have the legends, you can just simply have it over here. So you have noticed how we have the ability now to actually modify the pie chart to incorporate as much details as possible. So we have the effects also for the shadows, if you'd like to add the element of the shadows. See how professional this is. So you're able to modify the pie chart, come up with a pie chart, and include the details for the pie chart. That way, you have full representation of your data in the best way possible. So how about, let's remove this additional pie chart that we have made. And how about if we change the details of the pie chart? What I mean by this, instead of the game title and the critique score, how about we go for the total sales, which is helpful. Okay, that's one. And then I'm going to be adding the publisher. Notice what happens over here. I did not include the legend. What have I done is I compared the total sales to the publishers. So if you notice, I got different publishers and the sales percentage. Now, if I add the layer of the legend, always think about the legend as the color layer, which helps you break down the data. How about the console? Look what happens. Here we go. So I was able to add the legend. In other words, filters my sales based on the publisher. So sales and publisher, they go together. And then I'm able to select the console through the legend representation. So that way you have the pie to reflect the publisher, as you can see over here. You get the names of the publishers, right? And then you have the percentage of the sales per publisher. And then you have the ability to filter it based on a certain console. So think about the legend as the color filter. If I remove this now, so what do you have? You got just simply the publishers and the sales. So it's up to you. How would you like to go about this? And like I've mentioned, I'm showing you the different variations to help you get some inspiration and how to go about this. And this concludes the lesson on pie charts. Take a look at a very powerful visual that you could use to help you gauge your results or gauge your data. What do I mean by this? If you navigate over here, you got the gauge option. Click on this. Let's expand it for a bit. Now, a gauge is like the speedometer of a car. Think about it of having minimum value and a maximum value. Now, there are certain obstacles that you might come across as you go about this, but I'm going to show you a very powerful bypass to help you get the best out of gauges. So once you click on the gauge, you got the value that we need to gauge. We get the minimum and the maximum value and the target value. Now, it says over here add fields. If you do not have certain columns already prepared for this, there's nothing to be worried about. Let me show you how. For example, I would like to gauge the critique score. So this is what I'm going to use. Now, if you notice, I got this pop-up of a gauge. The numbers, they do not make sense. I got the sum of a critique score. I got 691.5, 1.38K. It doesn't make sense, right? Now, a critique score, I'm going to modify this. It's not going to be a sum. I would like to have the average. What is the average? It's 8.64 because the critique score that we have is from 10, 0 to 10. Great. Now, notice I got the minimum value and the maximum value. I really have no values that I could just simply drag and drop. So how would I make sense of the gauge? Very simply, navigate to format your visual, right? Take a look at the gauge axis. You click on the gauge axis. By default, you have the ability to change the parameters for the minimum and the maximum manually, or you could add a certain field once you populate it on your data set. You could go back, add a column for this for the minimum and the maximum. It's up to you, but there's no need for this because the easy way for this is simply type it out. 0, this is the minimum. Maximum is going to be 10. Notice what happens on the gauge. Here we go. So now it makes sense. We got 0 for the minimum. Maximum is going to be 10. The target, any certain target in mind? Here we go. Let's keep this as 10. Is going to be reflected over here. If we cannot achieve 10, how about 9? This is the target that we would like to achieve. That way, you are able to actually harness the power of gauges. You could change the colors. How about the fill color? You go for this color. Target color, add some contrast to it to change it. Now for the data labels, it's up to you. You could modify this as you please. The target label, if you'd like to add display units, you could go for thousands. Take a look at this, or auto or none, no units whatsoever. Again, it's up to you. Then what is the call out value? Is the value that you see in the middle. If you click on the call out value, you can change it to bold. Here we go. Change the color to red. It changed the color over here. Now, for the field, custom labels on and off, it's up to you. You could just simply click on this, and then you have the ability to add any data to it, but you need to have the data as part of the columns. But in case you don't, and you would like to hit the ground running with the gauges, this is the way you go about it. Simply select the gauges, pick the value that you would like to have, a minimum and a maximum. Forget about adding maximum or minimum over here. Then you're going to go through the format, the visuals, gauge axis. You input the data, minimum or maximum, saving you time, saving you effort. And that way you're able to create gauges for various parameters of your data. Now, let me give you examples. Average score, maximum, minimum, total sales. Let's go for sales as a demonstration. Here we go. So if we change the value from the average critique score to total sales. Now I'm going to change the number of total sales. This is the number, not the sum. How about the sum or the average of the total sales? 7.95. All right. We don't have a minimum. We don't have a maximum. This is the average number of sales. You could change the values if you'd like, minimum or maximum. Again, it's up to you. You go back over here, gauge axis, minimum sales, obviously 0. Maximum sales that you could do, for example, per month or per day, let's say 100. Take a look at the gauge. What is my target number of sales? So far for this month or the year, let's say 50. This is the target, and this is the gauge, and this is the number of the sales. As you could see, you are able to modify this the way that you find quite helpful and beneficial. Now, you could add decimals if you'd like. You could change the colors, all of these things. You could just simply modify them. For the data format, it's very important to go about this. What is the currency or the decimals or the percentages? It's up to you. But fix it from the data format. Let's say for the number of sales, I got a whole number, but if I'm using an actual figure, for example, I'm going to add currency, and then I'm going to forget about this thousand separator, 2 decimal places if you'd like, or 1 decimal place. It's up to you. And then I do have a currency over here. Which currency you go for? Again, it's up to you. Thousand separator automatically flips from the currency. So I'm going to go for two decimal places, and that's mainly at $7.95. If that's the sale number, by the way. For demonstration purposes, we're using the total number of sales, but I flipped it to a sales figure in case you would like to add the sum of the sales in addition to the number of the sales or any other figure that you would like to quantify as part of your data measurement. Simply sharing the approach. How would you go about this? So you have learned so far how to create gauges, how to find the bypass of minimum, maximum values on target values instead of trying to create columns, which could be catastrophic sometimes if you don't have data for this, or you're not able to tinker with the data easily, or you don't have access to the data. You can just simply bypass this by inputting the values by yourself, and that way you're able to utilize gauges to reflect important metrics of your data. Let's take a look at a very powerful data visualization tile, which is basically the cards. If you click on cards, literally, think about it like a flashcard. It helps you highlight certain numerical figures. Once we get to building our reports, you get to see the importance of this. Once you click on a card, you have the following fields. Add data field over here. So what does that mean? Let's say I would like to learn about the total sales. Drag and drop it. Sum of total sales, we have 789.6.9. This is the sum of the total sales, but obviously you cannot have the sales to be 0.9. Either it's a number or not. So I'm going to have the maximum number of sales. Here we go, 20.32, but this is not the number of sales. This is the actual figure. Let's go for count 99. Here we go, the total number of sales. So as you go about taking a look at the data, make sure that you're using it in a way which makes sense. So we got 99 sales, for example, or $99,000 for sales. It makes a difference. So you have to be careful when you are using the data in order to make sure it represents the actual information. So we got, for example, 99 sales. This is a card. You're able to modify it the way you see fit. Now, I'm going to change the visual a bit. Call out value is the value we see over here. Let's put it in bold, change the color to red. You have the ability to wrap the text if it needs to. Category label, if it's required, you can just simply make it vanish. It's up to you. For the general requirements, title, take a look at the title at the top, for example. Here we go. Sales count. It will add a label over here. Move it to the middle, and you could put it in bold. Increase the size. How about 24? You increase the size, then you change the color to red. Some basic modifications. You could add a subtitle if you want, or a divider. Then you have some effects, which include a shadow. This is the part of the cards which I like the most, the visual borders and the shadows. It helps you create some sort of segments that you could add here and there on your report. The data format, it's up to you. Is it count? You're able to change this to a whole number or a percentage. Again, it's up to you. Then here it says the count of the total sales. That's why I said be careful with the data that you're using. Make sure that you're using it to represent the actual information, because if you do not have the proper settings and you drag and drop the values as is, for example, the count of total sales, you need to modify this. Are we taking a look at the sum, the average, the minimum, the maximum? Keep that in mind, because this will not take place by default. So this is a card, and you have the ability to create, for example, multiple cards. If you click copy and paste, Control C, Control V, the same way you do on a text, Control C and Control V, you have the ability to create multiple cards, and every single one of them you could use it to represent something else. Let's say the game title, Assassin's Creed. This is the first game title, or the last, or the count, and this is where you have some sort of how many times that game was present. So it's very important to make sure when you're adding cards, you're actually using it to represent certain elements of data, because not all of the information that you have are going to be is going to be useful, right? You have to be quite specific. Here, instead of sales count, I'm going to go for the critique score. How about the maximum? Here you go, which is 10 out of 10, or the minimum, which is very important. Now let's go for the general. I'm going to change the title, not the sales count, minimum critique score. Here we go. So this is quite important. Now it's up to you to visualize how many cards that you would like to go for, how would you place them, how would you like to use them, and what kind of metrics that you would like to represent. At this stage, by default, mentally you're able to come up with various combinations of the visuals that we have learned so far, which is crucial as you get to the point where you start to build your reports. We are building visuals. Sometimes we need to get data in front of us. This is where we go for tables or a matrix. Let's click on a table over here. Literally, it will help us draw some inspiration from the actual data that we have. What are the columns that I would like to take a look at? For example, total sales, that's one. Publisher. How about the game title? The console? So I'm able to have all of these tables represented over here for the ease of navigation. Literally, you have the sum of the total sales per publisher, per game title, and you're able to either sort them out, either ascending or descending based on the highest value or lowest value. It's up to you. Now, this is very important because it helps you have the data over here to be visually present literally on the report, which makes it quite easy for the individual trying to navigate the tabular format of the data. And obviously you could adjust this, the style presets. You have minimal, bold header, for example. You have alternating rows. You have the ability to modify it the same way you are modifying a table. So you can pick a style which matches your own requirements. That way you're able to easily reflect it on a table. Think about it in an Excel table. The same logic follows. You got the grid. You can change the grid color, for example, and then the vertical grid lines. It's up to you to separate the columns. If you'd like a border, obviously you could go for a border line. Any other options for the padding, you could do so. For the values, you can tinker with them. The column headers, for example, you can place them in the middle or the sides, and you can change the colors. For example, you can go for red colors. Here we go for the background. Any specific column or the totals at the bottom. Once you are adding any values, you can change it to the total label or any specific label that you would like. Then you have the headers. You can add them for, here you go. Let's zoom this out. Here we go. So apply to header, apply to total. You're able to apply the sums of the data. Now, this is the sum of the total sales. I could go for this for the title, for example. Then I can go for the publisher, apply to total, apply to header. So you're able to change the data that you have, apply settings to the series that you have. But obviously, if I don't have numbers for the publishers or the game titles or the consoles, I will get nothing over here. But since I got numbers for the sum of the totals, then I'll be getting some numbers over here. So that's why it's important to keep this in mind as you're applying the total criteria. Make sure that you have numbers in your data. Apply to certain values, the text color. How about we go for the white color over here and apply to headers. Nothing has changed. Cell elements, background color for certain elements. Take a look at the alterations that I have. Font color, you can change this. Data bars, you can change this. You can actually reflect the data bars in the sums of the total. So as you can see, you have different variations that you could go for to fix up a table. The same way you have the ability to tinker with a table within Excel. That's some logic. That's a logic to follow as you are building the visuals for your table. And it's up to you to tinker with it, just simply walking you through the various options that you have as you go about building your table. You could add a title for the table if you would like, and you can type in the title, let's say cross check, for example, and then that will be displayed at the top. Then you put it at the center. Any piece of information that you would like to add to your table, you have the ability to tinker with it. Now, just simply to avoid wasting time on minute details, I walked you through key edits that you could use. Feel free to just simply pause the lesson, watch it again, and try to tinker with the different tables that you're able to reflect by using the tables visual. Now we could switch to the matrix. If I click on the matrix, I have the ability to have a matrix representation. When we say the word matrix, we take a look at the y-axis and the x-axis. I have the ability to select certain items. I have the ability to drop down certain headings. For example, if I take a look at this current row, I drop it down, I got PS4, PS3, and I'm able to cross-check based on a certain criteria. It's literally a matrix. You got headings, you got vertical columns, and you got total numbers. That way you're able to have different a visual representation compared to a table, because a table has mainly columns, right? Just simply a columns back to back. But a matrix incorporates the columns, headers, and a vertical column, and another row for comparison or to cross-check with the matrix. So that being said, now you have a clear idea how to navigate between tables and matrices. Businesses in general, they would like to understand how data is affecting or influencing key decisions, right? Or how data is interfering with other sets of data through influence, which is not very apparent. This is the whole point of data visualization, data analysis, analytics, to see these influences. And one important visual that you could use is key influencers. Now, the key influencers mainly are used to help us see any patterns or any interference between one data set to the other. Now let's try to experiment with this. First of all, take a look at the display over here: analyze, explain by, and expand by. What does that mean? Analyze, it means analyze the following field that I'm going to add over here. Investigate any influence on this field by the other field. And if you find any influence, expand further investigation through another field. So you start from the top. This is the part that you would like to study, investigate, and see the influence of the other two on the field that you have chosen. For example, I would like to analyze the total sales, and I would like the analysis of the total sales to be explained by the release date, for example. Here we go. So if you notice, I'm trying to explain the sales by the release date, and I have such an analysis over here. So key influencers, what influences the total sales to increase or to decrease? Now to increase, notice that when the day of the month is 29 or less, the average total sales increase by 2.83. So what does that mean? It means the total sales are more likely to increase when day is 29 or less. As you go towards the month, from day 1 all the way to day 29, you notice that your sales are increasing. However, when would the sales decrease? If you are actually going to more than day 29, it means you're going for the days of 30, 31st, you're not making enough sales, or the sales are actually decreasing, which makes perfect sense. As you go through the month, you're making more sales, and more sales, and it has been noticed that the maximum number of sales which has been achieved is actually on the 29th, right? Take a look at the hover. Minimum day number 1, maximum day number 29, count is 90 sales. So once you go from day 1 in the month to day 29, you're achieving the majority of your sales. And once you go way past 29, 30, and 31st, you're not making that much sales anymore. So take a look at this subliminal influence that we weren't quite familiar with, right? It helps you shed some perspective that this is something quite unique. Like certain days of the month are affecting my sales. And if I would like to expand this even more, let's see if the game title, for example, has any effect on the sales. And notice nothing is popping out. Keeping in mind, this is something that you have to tinker with. You have to move the columns or the headlines of the columns and to the analysis and explain them by different iterations. You remove one and you add the other to see if there are any influencers which you are not which you're not able to spot quite easily, which is quite crucial for decision making. Now, take a look at this, for example, for the video games companies. They know that they make the majority of their sales within the first 29 days. So they're going to be focusing their efforts on the first 29 days. And the other two, since the sales are plummeting, they try to investigate this further or try to focus on different activities, for example, which is crucial for decision making. And businesses depend on what's known as a KPI, key performance indicator, which helps dictate if the business is moving forward or not. Whether you're a finance major, you are an accountant, you are an analyst, you are an entrepreneur, a business owner, whatever domain that you're at, you are dealing with KPIs. And we do have a visualization tool, which is called KPI, obviously. You click on it, which will help us understand how are we doing based on a certain reference. So if you take a look over here, notice we have the value that we are measuring. What is the trend over a period of time? Here you're going to add time, duration. Target, what are you trying to achieve? The benchmark. Now, if you don't have a target field over here, obviously you need to add one. There's no bypass to this when you're adding data. For example, sales number, the target for a certain period, you're going to input this. And this will be reflected within the table, and then you're able to add it over here. But I'm going to show you how we could use the data that we have so far in order to come up with important KPIs. For example, let's say I want to measure the value of sales, total sales, based on a certain duration, which is the release date. I'm going to drag this over here. Notice what happens. I have a number over here, and at the back, I have a color, which shows me the trend, or it shows a graph with a gray color, which shows me the trend. Now, I need to adjust my value because I don't want to deal with the sum of the total sales. Let's take a look at the maximum total sales, number of sales within the release dates. So I got 13.94. Obviously, this number, I need to fix it because you cannot have partial sales. So I'm going to go to the general data format. The format is a whole number, which will become 14. Like I mentioned, you have to be careful with the data because at the end of the day, you're showcasing the data, which should make sense. So we have the maximum value of total sales should be 14. This is the value that we have right now. And our target is, now I'm going to add the sales as well to be the target. But if you notice, I'm going to change this to be the minimum value. So look what happens. So my target was the minimum value of my total sales, which is the goal over here, which was 5.77, which in other words, 6 sales. And I have achieved 14. So at the back end, the color will light up to green, and you're going to have a green tick mark showing you the percentage of the increase, which confirms that the KPI has been fulfilled. And the applications are endless with HR, with finance, with accounting. Sky's the limit. Now let me show you how the KPI would not be fulfilled. What if I switch the minimum sales instead of maximum? Minimum total sales, the target is the minimum total sales, which means 0% increase. We met the target as is, right? Now, let's switch the target to be the maximum value of the sales, and the color will shift to red, showing me that the target number that I've achieved is lower than the goal by 58.61%. And like I've mentioned, you can go to the data format over here, change the format of the data, make it as a whole number, and that way you'll be able to change it. You could add percentage format as well. You could just simply tinker with the data. I fixed this for the maximum total sales in this current case. You can do the same thing for the minimum total sales like we have done previously, and that way you'll have whole numbers instead of decimals, which do not align to the number of sales. But if you are dealing with figures like actual numbers related to currency, We have to switch to the general. Let's add some currency again for the demonstration purposes only. You got the currency, you got 13.94 dollars. Let's adjust the one at the top over here. We're dealing with, we fixed up the maximum total sales. Let's fix up the minimum sales. Let's go to the tab, general, data format, minimum total sales, go to currency to make sure that the data actually goes hand in hand. And obviously, when you're dealing with currency, you do have 0.7, 0.6, 0.5, which makes perfect sense. So that way, based on such an adjustment, for example, again, for demonstration purposes, you could see that our goal was 13.94, but we got 5.77. So this clearly shows us that we are able to use the KPI cards in order to achieve goals, which is something which is very important for businesses in general, whether you're trying to achieve a certain number of sales, a certain numerical figure, a certain man hours, certain costs, expenses, whatever it is. So it's a very important visualization tool to add up to your reports and dashboards to help you create forecasts and to make informed business decisions. Now I'm going to build up on the KPI, for example, card over here, or the KPI visual, by adding some narrative. Often when you are building your report, you need to explain stuff to the individuals reviewing it. And this is where you go to narrative. Literally, you're going to narrate stuff, add a text box like a Word document. You click on the narrative. Now I'm going to choose either, I can use Copilot if there's an integration with artificial intelligence based on a paid version, for example, or you click on custom. And once I click on custom, I'm able to see a text box. Now the narrative by default explains the data. So what I'm going to do is, let's say I'm going to modify this. I'm going minimum total of sales trending down on October 2001, for example. I'm going to fix this. Then I'm going to remove this part. How about this part? Notice by default, I was able to get a summary, and it's up to you, by the way, to tinker with this. You could add links, you could add some data, some visuals. Let's increase the font size. Here we go, 16. Let's place this in the middle in the form of a summary. Now, once you click on the drop, you could fine-tune the narrative, and it's even better when you have Copilot to do the analysis for you. You could click on the value, any certain value that you would like to add or to calculate. This is a bit advanced, where you show up calculations within the narrative based on the data that you have. And that's why I have chosen to use the KPI card that we have created to come up with the narrative to show you that you don't have to start from scratch. Once you add the narrative, by default, it's going to incorporate some of the elements which you are displaying on your report already, and you're able to modify it in the best way possible. So let's say that we are quite content with the narrative over here. You're able to select it, move it, do any adjustments to it as part of the placements, in addition to modifying it. So take a look at the text box. You can add the title, and the title says briefing, for example. You place it in the middle, and then you increase the font size. Let's make it about 34. Think about it like you're working with your team and you need to brief them on the data. It's up to you how would you like to navigate this. Then you have the effects. You could add the shadows to further explain your data sets, and then you're able to move it over here. And that way you could have a clear representation or briefing on whatever you have on your report. Again, sky's the limit. It's up to you to try to explain or represent your data. I'm walking you through the tools that you could use, the different available visuals that you could incorporate, and then you could just simply get creative with the process. By adding text, removing text, you could add links, for example. Let's say you want to link this to an external report. You click on the link and you type in the link, and that's mainly it. And whenever someone is watching or viewing the report, reading it, Once we get to the export part, as we're going to see when we build up our own report, you can just simply click on the link and you could go through it. You could even link to your own a video. You could link to a certain template. Again, the applications are quite endless. So that way, you are not just simply confined to having actual visuals, but you could add the human element of text to it through what we call as the narrative tile. Let's take a look at one of the powerful visuals that you need to have, which helps you draw some important analysis as part of data modeling and visualization, which is the decomposition tree. What does that mean? Literally, we're able to dissect data visually in the form of a tree map to analyze what's going on. We got the analyze, explain by, and any tooltips once we have a hover effect to interpret. Once you hover over the analyze, it means a metric we want to break down. What I would like to break down and based on what? So what am I going to use to break down the area of investigation? What do I mean by this? For example, I would like to break down the total sales. You can see the sales over here to understand how are they broken down based on console. Here we go. Notice what happens. I'm going to click plus. High value, low value. Take a look at the data. I was able to actually allocate my data based on the highest value at the top, lowest value at the bottom. I can just simply scroll through them. Why? Because my criteria was the console. So I was able to explain my data using the console. Let me repeat this. So I'm going to remove this. Click on the plus sign over here. What do you want to start first? High value, low value. Let's go by console. Just simply selected console. By default, it will arrange it from the highest to the lowest. So this is one level of breaking down your data where you're able to see small bars like loading bars, and you can see the figures which allocate the numbers from, or a percentage, we can modify this by the way, to reflect from the total that you have, what are the components of the total that you have. So we're analyzing the total sales by the console. We're not done yet. How about we analyze this by the game title? Explain this by the game title. Look what happens now. So I'm able to actually dig further into my data. I have a plus sign over here. Click on this. Let's go for the title, game title. And what do you notice? We have the console. Then we zoomed into the game title and we have a tree format. If you take a look at the tree format over here, it shows you from the PS3, for example, feeding into what games, and the other games. You're able to click on every single one of them and see the buildup which leads to the total sales. And frankly speaking, this is one of my favorite visualization tools for data modeling because it helps you go from the macro view all the way to the micro view. Let's take it one level further. So we're investigating or explaining the sum of the total sales, which is over here, by the console and the game title. Let's add another level of our investigation. How about the developer? So I'm going to add the developer as well. And notice what's going to happen over here. You're going to have a plus sign. So let's add the plus sign. Just simply add the developers. Here we go. So we add a column. Now, if I click on the sum of the total sales, it vanishes. Explore the total sales. That's one. Here we go. Then, based on the console, I have the tooltip hover effect over here, PS3, the sum of the total sales. Then I would like to investigate further. Click on any of them. Then you got the game title. Then click on any of the game titles. Then you have the developer based on every single game title. And the applications are endless. Let's take it one level further, which is very interesting to do. How about we add the critique score? And here we go. You got a plus sign. Click on it. Critique score. Now we have leveled up to the critique score. So we started from the total sales to the console, game title, developer, and the critique score for that specific game. So you're able to click on the total sales, find the area of interest that you want to explore based on console, PS3 for example, And then I'm going to take a look at the various game titles that I have. I'm going to click on Grand Theft Auto, for example. Who's the developer? Then what is the critique score? See how powerful this is. You're able to go from one level of data to the other, showing you the connections and the interlinks between them. Now, let's take it one level further by modifying our data. For the tree that I have, what is the tree density? Let's say dense. Look what happens. Compact. How about sparse? There's a lot of space between them. That way you're able to see and just simply scroll through any one of them that you would like to visualize or go through with details. Let's keep it by default as is. Now let's take a look at any connectors, the lines that we see. Gray is not very apparent. Let's go for the dark colors. Yes, here we go. We're able to modify this. Now for the bars, what would you like to have? The bar size shows the level, top node, for example. I could change this. Level maximum, you could change this. Parent node, any modification that makes sense of your data, you can just simply tinker with it. Okay, take a look at the displays of the bars. Reduce the size, increase the size, again for the sake of convenience. Start the value that I would like to start at and to end, where by default auto values, they will take up the values from the fields that we have been using. But you could modify them as well. Let me show an example. Let's click 100 over here. Notice what happens. The values will drop. If I go for 1,000 for the starting point, the values start to increase. You could tinker with this to reflect the level of the maximum that you have, or the we call it the top of the node, or the parent node. Look what when I switch from level maximum for every single one of them to the parent node to the top node. So the top node is the ones at the top. Level maximum reflects for every single one of them the maximum levels available for that specific criteria. Category labels, you could change the colors, the values, any headers that you have. You got specific titles, subtitles, background color if you'd like. You can add gray color for the headers. All of these are various options which will help you better represent or visualize your data. You could add a title for this, any specific effects like we have seen, shadows, which are a good addition. Data format is very important. Do we like to go for the sum of the total sales? You can, or apply this to any of those categories. But I would like to have a whole number instead of having decimals, which makes sense. This applies for the total sales. How about the critique score? The critique score could be a decimal. It was rectified over here. So you're able to change the settings for any of those headers. So as you can see over here, we were able to alter the end result. Like I mentioned, I just simply breezed through the various settings to show you how you could modify this. But by default, as is, something that you could use by itself as a tree map is way too powerful to be ignored. You need to incorporate this as part of your reports to help you actually dissect your data to levels which you cannot see based on patterns and graphs or bar charts. And welcome back. Now, it's very important to add some sort of functionality for the individuals interacting with your report. If they are not technical, they have no idea how to navigate the report, they're able to see it, but they would like to get more information from it in the best way possible. And this is where we could use what we call as Q&A segment, literally a question and answer, which draws upon the analysis of your data, in addition to utilization of artificial intelligence to come up with questions that might be helpful for your users. For example, click on this Q&A, expand this. Let's analyze this. So here you have a question about your data. Keep in mind, it's linked to the data that you have. The more information you have over here, the more information that you're going to have over here. So try one of these to get started. Count the publishers, total sales, most recent table, Table sorted by genre. How many genres are there? What is the total GP sales? And all of these suggestions. Click on this. These are the suggestions based on the analysis by Power BI to the data I've given it. Let's say I'm going to select how many consoles are there. Click on it. So you're going to get the answer to the question that you have. 10 consoles. Great. How about, let's go for something else. If I would like to ask for the genre, how many genres are there? 13 total genres. So instead of having someone dig into the data and try to find out the information by themselves, this is a very important functionality that you could add to your reports, which are basically Q&A sections. And you have the ability to type as well. For example, total sales. Here we go. Sum of the total sales. Here we go. 786.9. How about the number of sales? These are some important questions that someone is going to be asking. The total number of sales, we got the same result. Keeping in mind, we need to make sure that the data that we're using reflects the information in the best way possible. Then, how about number of publishers? 22 publishers. Good. If I would like to investigate data further, how about let's take a look at a table from the data that we have. Table sorted by genre. Click on this. So it will help me get the data which I have already added as part of my analysis in the beginning, but it's dealing with this from the end of the user. Someone who is not able to investigate the data the same way you, the one who has made the report, is able to do in the first place. So tables sorted by genre, they're able to populate this in the way which looks like Excel, and you have the ability to have the tooltip hover effect to see any details. For example, game title, console, publisher, critique score, total sales, other sales, release dates, all of the information that you have over here. By simply adding the Q&A segment, you're able to add some extra level functionality to the users of the report. That way, it helps your report stand out. It helps your dashboard stand out. Imagine you have all of the tiles located over here, and then you have a Q&A segment where people are able to click on any of these suggestions and obtain data on the spot, which adds next level powerful analysis to the data that you have as part of business decision making, business analytics, data modeling, data visualization. It's a very complementary visual to add, which is the Q&A, to help you make sense of your data, specifically if you are on the receiving end, if you're giving this report to your manager, to your boss, if you are building this report and then you would like to pinpoint certain elements on the spot without digging into the data, simply adding a Q&A, you're able to ask questions to pick up the information from the data. And not just that, once you go for the a business account, the company account, or the school account, the paid version mainly, you have the ability to utilize Copilot, which is the artificial intelligence ability, which will help you even make more sense of the data that you're having. It's time to learn about filters. When you're creating a report, it's often important to filter out some data for you as someone who's designing the report and as part of data analysis and analytics for the users who are going to be receiving the report, whether you're manager, whether a finance department, whether account department, whatever it is, and vice versa. You should be able to filter through the data. Now, take a look at the tabs over here. We got the data. Visualizations, we've learned about these. Now let's take a look at the filters. For the sake of demonstration, I'm going to pick a line chart as a reference to use to see how could we implement filters. And then take a look at the filters tab over here. You got filters on this visual. I'm going to add fields over here. Filters on this page if you have multiple visuals and tiles. Filters on all pages if you got multiple pages of your report. This applies to every single page. And I'm going to show you how does this make a difference in our application. So let's say for this current visual, first of all, I'm going to build it. Here we go. For the x-axis, I would like to have the release date. For the y-axis, I would like to have the total sales. So I have a basic representation for a line graph, right? Or a line chart. Now, take a look at the filters on this visual. We have various filters based on the month, quarter, year, and sales. And you could add any option to filter. For example, I could hide this filter or display it if I would like to. And I could go for basic filtering or advanced. For advanced filtering, it works really well for numerical figures. If you'd like to pick up data between certain ranges, for example, show value which is less than a certain number and more than a certain number, for example, or conditioning. So this depends on the case that you have on a case-to-case basis. But let's go for basic filtering. For basic filtering, it will simply display to you all the values that you have available in that specific field, and you just simply select them. And once you do, you're able to alter the end result on the visual. So this is a basic application for filters on the visual that you have, right? And obviously I could hide the filter, I could show the filter, and I can just simply clear the filter completely. So this is the first level of filtering, which is the filter on this visual. And I can just simply remove, by the way, all of these filters if I don't find them quite helpful. That's one. Then we have filters on this page. If I would like to add a filter, not just simply for one visual, but if I have multiple visuals, let's say, again, for demonstration purposes, I'm going to add a line chart. I'm going to copy it and paste it. Here we go. And then I'm going to change this to a pie chart. Here we go. So I have two charts or two displays over here, two visuals, two tiles, whatever you would like to call it, to help us make sense of the data. And notice, since I copied this and I pasted this, whenever I click on something over here, there is a direct impact on the data. This is part of the syncing process. So if I click over here, I'm able to see the point. So now I got two different visuals, and these visuals are in sync with each other. And if you would like to do the same thing, the easiest way, just simply copy it, Control C, Control V, and you could have many tiles over here. So let's create one more or two more to mimic the behavior of an actual report. So I'm going to copy this, Control C, Control V, and then let's select a different visual. Sky's the limit. You can just simply pick whatever one that you're comfortable with, and another one. Here we go. And then I'm going to go for a tree, for example. Here we go. So you got yourself various representations, and now they are in sync. Whenever I click on one, it affects all of them. Let me now go about applying filters, right? So I'm going to clear my selection. I got filters on all of these visuals now because why? I copied my data, copied the actual tile to something else, and I pasted it. That way it maintained the original filters. But what if I do have, this is one page, let's say I got 3 to 4 pages, and I would like to add a filter for a certain page and filter for all of the pages. So let's take a look at this current case, filters on this page. I would like to filter this data based on the publisher. So I'm going to add this over here, right? I have the option for basic filtering or advanced filtering. Let's keep it basic. And when I select any of them, look what happens. I'm filtering my data. I could clear this over here, right? Here we go. So I applied one filter. I could add other filters as well. Filters on all pages, it means if I go ahead and create extra pages, let's say one more page over here, page 4, 5, and 6, any filter that I add over here will be available on all of these pages. And where do you see this, by the way? Like, where do you see the impact on filters? Now, keep in mind to save your tiles, your current drafts, your reports, to make sure you're not losing data. Navigate to the reading view at the top over here. This will represent the data as if you are a reader, a viewer. Click on it. Now you got the pages for the various segments of the reports. If you have various pages, let's say 10, 20 pages, and take a look at the filters over here. This is very important. You get filters on the visual. Here we go, which alters the visuals that we have. And notice, what do we have over here? Filters on this page. So this is a filter uniquely to this current page. If I have other pages, and this filter will not be displayed on them. If I have a filter for all of the pages, then the filter will be displayed on all of them. So you get the difference. So what I'm going to do right now, let's say filters on this page. I selected basic filtering. I've chosen a certain publisher. Take a look at the data based on the publishers that I have. This is the power of filtering, where you're able to add filters to your reports, which act either at an individual visual representation level. Let's see over here, basic, you're able to chain them. This is for the first tile, right? And then let's go for the second one, the other filter that we have. Here we go. And then take a look at let's clear all of the filters. How about the quarter over here? I'm going to filter this. Excellent. Now let me select the other tile. So I selected the first one. I got represented with these filters. I'm going to select the other one now, and then go for basic filtering and alter the results. Select the other one over here. Also basic filtering, and you get to alter the results. So when you have a filter based on a visual, you select the visual and then you adjust the filter. You select the visual, you adjust the filter. This is the filters per visual. However, filters on this page affect all of the visuals on the page, not visual to visual basis. Here you go. So you get the difference. Now, if we go for filters available on all pages, any filter that you do here will affect all of the pages that you're going to be having on the pages segment. So you get the whole idea now how filters are really impactful on visualizing data at visual to visual levels, then page to page levels, or all of the pages at the same time. And let's say I don't want to have any of these filters present. I'm going to go back to edit. Then you have the option to hide these filters. That way they are not visible. Once again, if you go to the reading view, they have completely vanished and you have only the filters on this page. So this is the power of filters. When you are able to build up your reports, you're able to add filters to your tiles based on the fields that you have. Then the users have the ability to filter through the data, and you could add the filters to a single page or to all of the pages, which adds an extra level of data analysis and data analytics approach, which makes it convenient for you as a designer of the report and for the users to obtain relevant information instead of trying to dig for information here and there. This is the whole point of filters, finding out the pieces of information which are quite relevant and reflecting it on the visuals. Now we're going to dive into learning about slicers. So filters, they give you the ability to filter certain data based on visuals, pages, or all of the pages. However, slicers, they give you the ability to literally slice up the data straight onto the page itself. Think about it like layers of filters stacked up together to help you easily pick up the information based on your preset criteria. What does that mean? Take a look at the navigation pane over here for the visualizations. You find slicers, click on slicers. You're going to have such a display over here. It says select or drag fields you want to populate this visual with. So what I'm going to do is, now at this stage, think about the criterias that you would like to have available on your report, either for the user of the report or for you to be able to navigate through the data to get the best information possible. What does that mean again? Let me show you how. For example, I would like to filter, I'm going to use the word filter to show you that slicers and filters, they help you pick up information but in different fashion. Filters are not that flexible, but slicers are way more flexible. Filters, they are more onto the actual end view. You're not able to dig them directly from the report, but slicers, they allow for the direct interaction with the report. Now let's see how. So I'm going to go for the publisher. I'm trying to filter my data, slice my data based on the publisher criteria. If you notice over here, it will list for me all of the publishers, right? Instead of going to the filters and trying to filter every single publisher, I just simply dragged the publisher field over here. And once I click on this, notice what happens. It affects all of the tiles, not one at a time. This is the first key consideration, and it is placed on the actual report. Because if you go now to the reading view, look what happens. You are able to have a slicer without a filter. So you could modify your report's visual appeal directly on the report instead of having the users go for filters, or you'd go for a filter and try to come up with a filter, which could be quite complicated. From a basic perspective, you have the same results. But from an advanced filtering, it could be quite complicated. And this is where slicers are quite helpful, because they allow you to have the advanced filtering in an easy way and straight on the report. Let's go back to the slicer to see how could we use it even further. So I'm going to clear up the selections that we have over here. Here we go. We've erased all of the selections and we have used this field. Now, are we done yet? Of course not. I could add another layer to the slicing effect from the publisher. How about we go for the game title? So I'm going to drag and drop it as well. And I could drag the developer as well. So you have publisher, game title, developer. It affects the filters, of course, but you don't have to deal with the filter. You can just simply take a look at it as one compact, powerful filtering mechanism straight on the report without the need to dig for information through the advanced filters. So if I click on a certain publisher, game title and developer, so if I click on the publisher, I will filter everything, right? But I'm able to drop this down and select certain elements to pinpoint on my report directly. See how powerful this is? I could layer it even more. I could add the genre as well. So this will add another level of filtering ability, which is quite difficult to do with regular filters, basic or advanced. So I'm able to find the publisher, pick up the game, select the game, then I could cross-select with other publishers. Then let's add one more level to it. How about the sales? Here we go. I'm adding the sales as well. Now I'm going to close up the entire filters, and let's go the slicers, which act like filters in this case. And I'm going to add take a look at the levels that we're having from macro to micro. Look at the ultra level of filtering, which you cannot do by advanced filters easily. So I'm able to select certain parameters, here we go, to pinpoint specific outcomes on the report easily. Now, that being said, we could also alter how the slicers interact. You're going to navigate to the customization and the formatting. You get the visual aspects and the general aspects. Now, you could add a title. You could take a look at the height and the width of the slicer. You could arrange this. Data formats, which applies to the categories that you have selected. You can tinker with this as well. We've covered this in previous lectures. For the visuals, this is the important part. The slicer settings. You can go for a vertical list or a drop-down list. You can select this and then you pick up the options that you want, or you could go for a vertical list and you choose from. It's up to you. And as for the selection, this is where the direct impact of you as a designer comes in handy, where you're able to visualize what are the pieces of information which are helpful to the individual who is receiving the report. So you're able to have either a single selection, or you can give them the ability to multi-select. Again, it's up to you. So you can have single select option where the user has the ability to select only one item at a time instead of selecting different items, or you can give them the ability to multi-select. That way they're able to cross-check information from various selections without having the need to actually go about the process of creating customized filters. So you get the idea. And keep in mind, once you go from single selection to multi-selection, you're not going to have the ability to apply them at the same time. It's either single select or multi-select. Single select simply gives you an option to choose from one option to select, and that's mainly it. But multi-select, you're able to remove certain elements or add some elements from your main categories. That way, it gives you more slicing ability, more filtering ability. So now you see the difference between slicers and filters. Filters, they act outside of the report. You're able to see them on the pane over here or the display over here. These are the filters. They are not part of the entire layout of the report. However, slicers, they are within the report. Slicers give you direct interaction with the report as a user. However, if you would like to get more details which are outside of the report design, then you go for the filters, which depends on your ability to navigate basic filtering, advanced filtering to get the results that you want, which could be tedious to some users. So slicers come in hand in order to help the filtering ability get simpler. At the same time, get as much details as possible without the need to dive into the advanced filtering capabilities, which some users they are not able to do. And welcome back. So now we've learned the initial setup that we have for Power BI. Now I'm going to walk you through creating your first report. This is the core of the current lesson, what we're going to be doing. So we're going to continue where we have left off, and we need to actually start to edit this report and make it look in a way which is quite reasonable and related to our application. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to click on edit over here, tap on edit, switch to edit mode. And notice what happens right now. When I switch to edit mode, the first thing that pops, I have pages. It means my report now could have multiple pages. Every single page that you add to the report, it includes certain details. And the visualization tab has popped over here, which includes different types of visuals. So now we are going to actually incorporate our data. Let's display our data. And now we are going to build our report, which is related to video games, the number of sales, the region of sales, the console, etc. That way it makes sense for us. So for example, this current tile, I would like to change it to something different. How about we go to what we call as a funnel? Notice what we have over here. We have different types of visuals. In this current lecture, I'm going to incorporate as much as possible for you to help you see how could you use them and to get some inspiration from them. So once you click on the build your visual, you have the ability to actually select different visuals. Then you have the ability to modify the legend of the visual, the values which are going to be added to the visual. Then you have this option which is drill through. What does the word drill through mean? If you have data which is extensive, for example, you got dates, date, month, day, hour. So once you click on drill through, it means go through all the data from the general category and zoom in all the way. So add drill through fields here. It means, for example, if I take in the release date, it's not going to just simply include the month. It include the month, the date, the year, and you get the idea. Then if we transition to format your visual, here I have the ability to actually add the legends, remove it on or not. This mainly is related to not the interior part, but the exterior part. You have the ability to change the colors, for example. You have the ability to add some labels. So you have the ability to rotate as well, which is quite good. You have the ability to actually rotate your display, as you can see over here. So this gives you the ability to have a general modification And then you have the ability to further analyze your visual. So analyzing further details on the visual, um, you need to have a certain visual that has the ability to go into analysis. This is something a bit advanced. For example, sales, you have different items, not just simply visual displays where you have calculation of data. This is a bit of specific case to case basis. So what we are concerned with is the area of application over here. If you notice, I have the ability to select any of these items at the top, these small tiles, and when I click on one of them, it by default changes the field over here. So notice what happens. If I click on this, every single one of them represents a certain amount of data, which is very, very powerful. Also, I could open the data model. Once you go back, you have the ability to actually switch the data. So if I click over here, it opens the data model, the data that I have used, and then you have the ability to actually alter the view that you have. You could show some grid lines. Here you go, you can see the grid lines. You could lock objects. You could have Copilot available as well. And then for the file, you have the ability to either download it as is, print it, or save it. And if you're working within an organization, you could add your team members as well to help you with the display. Then you have the option for the buttons, right arrow, left arrow. You could add these buttons based on your preference, and every single one of them could mean a certain thing. At an advanced stage, let me give you a bit of an insight. You could add a button which says, for example, click here in order to go to a following website. So once you click on this, you could actually play a video, you could go to a certain website. So these are advanced tactics. But for the current case scenario, we are going to have the basic implementation of building our reports. So enough said on that. Let's get to the building part. So I have the following tile. Now for the following tile, I would like to have, I'm going to clear everything out. I would like to have the game title and the number of sales, for example. Here we go. So this will show me the count of the game and the sum of the sales, but it doesn't look like it should be in a pie chart. So I'm going to have a stacked column. Sounds doable. How about here? You have a horizontal column. Let's go for something which is line and stacked column. So it shows me the different types of the count of the games based on the game title, but I need to add the game title, yes? So let's take a look at this. So I need to modify the details over here. So on the x-axis, I would like to have, for example, the game title. And then on the y-axis, I need to have the sales. Look what happens. Here we go. So over here, I can see the game titles and I can see the sales per game title. Then I have the ability to add a line on the x-axis, on the y-axis. How about we add also sales to the y-axis? Here we go. To showcase the lines along with the bars. Column legend. What would I like to call the column legend? Well, I do have in the column legends over here and the small multiples. Forget about the small multiples for now. It's not useful at this current stage. Column legends, just simply add to have some data about the legends. Here we go. Take a look at this game title. Excellent. Look what happens now. So I have a legend for every single game, which is based on a certain color. That way, I have the ability to see the sales for every single game. This is very powerful, right? Yes. So you have the game title. Here you go. And you got the sales for every game. And now you have the ability to see which game is being sold the most. This is very powerful. Now let's create another visual. Now for this current visual, I'd like to have a certain metric or a card. I'm going to click on this and I would like within this card to have the number of sales. Here you go. This is quite good. Now I'm going to change it to, how about GP sales? Let's remove this. And I'm going to have, how about the critique score, which is a helpful term. Here you go. Critique score. So this is the overall critique score for all of them, like all of the games, the sum. This is the sum. So it means we've added all the critique score to every single one of them. Once you click on this, you have the ability to remove the field, find the minimum, maximum to count it, or find the average. So let's go for the average critique score per game. This is one. Then I'm going to have another one, which is on another card, to showcase not the average, but the maximum critique score. Now, this is the sales. So we're going to remove this. Let's go for the critique score. Yes. And the maximum over here is a 10, obviously. And then I'm going to remove this and I'm going to delete this part and I'm going to change it to, how about the minimum critique score right now? So you get what I'm doing, yes. So I'm basically trying to show the critique score in terms of the average, the maximum, and the minimum, the number of sales created. This is very powerful. Now you are building a report which makes sense based on your data. So this is a first page, the first page. So what we have created so far, we have created the game title, sales per game. We added some legends and visuals. Then we've added some scorecards. These are cards that to show me the critique score for every single one of them. I selected it from here to showcase the average, maximum, and minimum. So think about it as ways to get data, to showcase the data in a way that makes sense. Now I'd like to see from top to bottom like a funnel. Now for this funnel, it's going to show me the categories from higher to lower. So what would I like to have? I'm not going to include dates. I'm going to have, how about the critique score, which is helpful. Here we go. And then some of the sales by critique score, which is good. Then let's have some publisher data. Here we go, to include some publisher data. So this way I have the ability, for example, to click over here to find out, first of all, which game has the highest sales per critique score, which is good. So I have the ability to modify this. Look how powerful this is. So once I click on here, I have the ability to spot the game. Yes. Now this game does not have a critique score. How about another game? Yes. Take a look at this. Now I'm able to find the game. Here we go. This is the game that I have. If I click on this game, what's the name of the game? Here we go. I'm able to find it. Yes. This is the game, which is by this publisher. So you get the logic behind it. Now the data is interlinked. So whenever I select a certain sum of sales by publisher, I'm able to find the games created by this publisher, the critique score for every single one of them. This is one way to look at it. Now let's take it one level further. How about we're able to add some ribbon charts and make it a bit, techy. Now for the x-axis, which is here, and for the y-axis, what do I like to have? Let me add every information that I would like to have in the x-axis. So I'm going to go for the game title. Here we go. And then for the y-axis, the sum of the sales, I could have this. Also, I would like to have the critique score in the y-axis. I could also include this. So the critique score, the sum of the total sales and the sum of the critique score. Now, it's not the sum of the critique score. I don't want to have the sum, just simply a count like an actual number. Then you could add a legend. You could add multiple fields. So sum of total sales and count of critique score by game title. So every single game, you have the ability to find its sales. At the same time, the critique score. So if I click on here, notice what happens. I have this game, critique score, and the allocation of it in terms of sales, which is, again, something very powerful to have in mind as you are collecting or refining your data. So let's say now I have created this basic representation for my information where I have my average critique score, the sales per game, and I need to have more information. Yes, so this is one page. Now on this page, I'm going to change, first of all, the name from the sum of sales to different regions. How about we can go for the critique score? And what you can do over here, you have the ability to make every single page based on a certain parameter. For example, for the developer, you could have the same data for developer. You could have the same data for game title. The more details that you would like to have, the more pages you will add to your report based on your preference. Some of the critique score, we don't want a sum. We need to have minimum critique score. Here we go, which is 9. And sum of sales, which is good. Some of regional sales based on different areas. We don't need the sum of the critique scores doesn't make a difference. We need to have the median, which is like the middle value. Okay, so we have a clear data set, and I'm going to call this, I'm going to change this. And by the way, once you click on any verbal or a written words, like, you have the ability to change them. So what I'm going to do right now, I'm going to change this: summary report of video games. Okay, and now I have the ability to make them bold, change the color to blue or red. Again, it's up to you. Then here you go. And that's mainly it. You have a title. It is a title. Then we have the ability to change the font or the background color. Let's change it to a red. And text wrap, subtitles, dividers, spacing. How about some effects? Now we could have, let's go for black color. Okay, it's something which is quite, here we go, in sync with our displays. Good. Transparency, you're able to adjust this. Visual border, yes, we'd like to have a visual border. Let's modify the border to put it in red, for example. And then would you like to add shadows? How about add some icons? Here we go. You could add some icons and different colors. Here you go. You could pin this. You could change the visual appeal of your icons, and alt text. If you'd like to enter a description to be read by the reader, for example, this is, here you go. This is a report on game sales. Here you go. Now we could add this data such that it represents the content of the table. And that's mainly it. So I'm going to click enter right now in case I'd like to add some space, and that will get the job done. So if I go up right now, but you notice it doesn't look quite proper, yes. So I need to have a proper alignment. How about if I increase the size over here? Summaries report of video games, and I could drag it all the way over here. Excellent. Now we do have a visually acceptable report. Everything looks quite proper about this, and I have the ability now to personalize every single element of these tiles. For example, if I click here, I can just simply click to visualize or personalize this. Now, once you go about here, you have the ability to change the visuals. Okay, you have the ability to change the color. Let's turn it to red. Here we go. So once you click here and click to personalize, it's going to drop this pane over here. That way you have the ability to alter every single element by itself. You have the ability to give it a title. You could add some effects for backgrounds. You could have a header icon. You could tinker with these based on your preference. Let's go for a background color. How about this color? Here you go. So every single one of them, the most important details for you, you're going to highlight them. This is very crucial. So now we have an initial setup for a report, which includes basically a summary report of video game sales. We have the game title, the sum of the sales, the average critique score, maximum critique score, minimum critique score. We have the sum of total sales and the count of critique by game title, and sum of sales and first publisher by critique score. So this is a very well-rounded piece of information, a good report which shows me the median critique value, sum of the sales, and again, you can draw some inspiration from it. So let's say I would like to have more details. So I'm not done yet. I'd like to have extra details to my application. So this is where we're going to transition to having another page. Welcome back. Now we are going to take it one level further by building our report, and we are going to go through this together. We're going to tinker with this the same way. I'm going to experiment with this straight with you. That way you're able to see the mistakes, see the trial and error to help you go through the process. So I'm going to add another page. Let's consider this page as a playground. So now I am going to add and build my visuals based on my data. So let's say, for example, I can just simply drag the data over here. I would like to focus on the console. This is one. And I would like to include within the console the game title. How about that? So I'm including the data that I have over here to show me, this is the tabular version. This is the actual data, yes. So I'm going to have the console and the game title. Now, how would I like to represent this? Let's go for field map. How about some regions? But we have to be careful with here. Map and field map aren't enabled for your organization. This requires a premium account. So you have to be quite careful with this. So again, once you have the full-on account, you have the ability to tinker with these and to add extra details. How about we add some information? Actually, we cannot because it should be on the premium version, but the intent was to actually showcase the location of every single sale. But there's nothing to be worried about. We are going to have a different report. Now I'm going to show you what's called as the paginated report. The paginated report is basically when you have a print ready report. This is very important. It's a bit advanced. When you are going to connect this report to whatever this page to the report that you have, if I drag this over here, for example, fully, and then I'm going to connect it to one of the reports of the previous pages to create a paginated report or paginated report. It means this report is print friendly. You have the ability to print it. So this is something on the side note, because often when you create these reports, you cannot print them on a piece of A4 paper and such that. Now, let's modify further details and try to have additional insights on our reports. I would like to add some KPIs, key performance index. So the data value that I have over here, how about the sales, total sales? Here we go. I'm going to have total sales, which is right here. Here we go. This is the total sales value. This is the sum of the total sales. It's displayed as an overall layout, but I need to add a target. So let's say the trend axis to show me how things are going are based on the console. So I can rename this, or sum of total sales based on the console. We wanted this. So it's showing me a trend. This is one. Target, add data fields here. So I'm going to get other sales. Here we go. So as you can see, my target is to achieve this number. Here we go. So the value that I have based on a certain trend should reach this target. You get the idea. Now it shows me a check mark. It means we have crushed our goal. Our goal, we are way higher than our goal. So you get that. This is called what we call as a KPI, key performance index, which is very powerful. Let me go for a different target. How about other sales? We tried this. How about a certain critique score? This is very good. How about we go for the critique score? This is one. This is the overall, the sum of the critique score. I would like to have the maximum critique score. Okay, this is the maximum, which is 9.3. Based on not the console, based on the game title, it will change. My target is the value that I would like to reach. The target should be the value that we have for the critique score should be as close as possible to cross this target. So my minimum value in this current case, I'm going to add the minimum critique scores. Let me go for the critique score again. But in this case, I'm not going to have the maximum critique score to match the sum of the critique scores. No, I need to go for the minimum. Here we go. Let's change it to the minimum critique score and swap the values. Here we go. So this will go here. Minimum critique score. This is going to be the sum, minimum. And over here, we're going to have the maximum. Right. So as you notice, my value, my minimum score, my minimum critique score should have, within the trends, of course, should achieve a target of the maximum critique score, which is 8.7 over here. This is our goal. So our goal, we need to have or to reach the maximum critique score of 8.7. So one of the minimum critique scores should be reaching the maximum critique score target, which is of 8.7. Let's try something else. So instead of the game title, I'm going to have the sales. So the value of sales in a certain location. Here we go. I'm going to go for the total sales based on the game. Let's pick any region. Here we go. So our goal is the sum of the total sales. I'm not going to go for the sum. Let's try this. The minimum sales per game title should reach the target sales over here. Or instead of going for the target sales, I'm going to go for the minimum sales over here. So if you notice, it means the minimum of total sales and minimum of PAL sales by game title. So it means we have crossed this KPI. It means our values, the data that we have gotten, we have achieved our goal based on these data sets, where the minimum total sales and the minimum regional sales based on a certain region by game title. Our goal is to go for 1.9. This is the KPI. We have crossed it and it's 5.01. So you get the idea. This is a KPI application. Let's have something else. So what if I would like to have another application where I'm going to just simply showcase the publisher. If you'd like to add something, just simply add it and drop it. And based on the publisher, what is the critique score? So I'm going to add this piece of information for me. And I'm going to pick a visualization which is quite reasonable. Not a KPI, not a slicer. How about a table? We could add a table. How about key influencers? Here you go. This is helpful. So this will show me the values that I have. But since this is limited in application, this means that I have too many data points. So when I have the data points, which is quite a lot, the key influencers, it will take less than 10. So I have more than 10. So it's not going to be functioning quite properly. So I'm going to try to select just 10 of them. 1, 2, 3. Here you go. Let's have one. Running the analysis. EA Sports. Here we go. So these are the key influencers that I'm trying to have, but I'm not able to adjust them because I'm having too many data points. Here we go. So when I fix this, when is a publisher more likely to be Rockstar Games? These are the top segments. This is good for the Sega. So these are the influencers, top key influencers. Here you go. I was able to modify it to showcase this. So when the sum of critique score goes up 0.8, the likelihood of publisher being Rockstar Games increases by 1.09. So this is very powerful. You get the idea behind this. So if you have 10 data points, this will be quite solid. But more than that, you have to go about selecting your segments. So let's go for this one over here. How about Ubisoft? So I'm going to click on Ubisoft. No segments found. Try adding some more fields into the explain by. So my analysis over here, analyze the publisher, explain by the sum of critique. So I don't have the ability to explain this by the sum of critique. How about we explain this by the sum of sales? So let's add sales. So this is what's going to happen. As part of the analysis, you have the ability to see which subject or object is influencing a certain parameter. Let me remove the critique score. Sum of total sales. Analyze not the publisher. Let's go for game or console, game title. Running the analysis. We have more data points, more than 10 unique values. So this is where it gets quite problematic. When is the game title more likely to be Assassin's Creed? Key influences. No, we need to add more data. So we don't have sufficient data. How about sum of total sales? How about critique score? Let's see if we have some data that we could analyze. We don't have this. Let's go for a different game. How about Call of Duty, for example? We're not getting data. FIFA, for example, there are no segments found. How about Battlefield, for example, Arkham City? So as you can see, this requires a bit of tinkering. It means we need to go about the process of finding which data has some sort of correlation between them. So this is something quite important to keep in mind, especially if you do have more than 10 unique values, because the key influencers is mainly focusing on certain elements which have the biggest changes. So I'm going to remove this because we don't want to have on our report something which is not generating a lot of data for us. So I'm going to transition to another tab. How about we gauge? So I'm going to select, here we go, let me gauge this. So as you can see, I'm walking you through the process from A to Z, including the trial and error, the iteration part, just to help you see the real life application of this instead of going through end results without you seeing the process of fixing them and the thought process behind them, which is crucial for your learning curve. So select or drag fields to populate this value. So add data values here. Let me go for the minimum value. Let me go for the critique score. Here we go. So for the critique score, I don't want to have the sum. I need to go for the maximum, which is 10. Okay. Minimum value for the critique score. Let me show it as a gauge. This is a minimum value. And then we have the critique score as well. This is the maximum value. Let me go for the average in the middle. Target data value. Okay, so what are we trying to compare this to? How about game title? Average of critique score, minimum of critique score, maximum of critique score, and count of game title. Tooltips, add data fields, and this sounds okay. So this means this gives me a range. So between the minimum critique score, maximum critique score, and the average between them. This way you have a clear display that the majority of the games are going more than the average. So this is very nice. Very good. It gives you the spectrum, the grid from you're not doing average, you're going more than average. Let's add another important tool, but I'm going to be shifting this to the bottom part. How about we reduce the KPI display, and then I'm going to add the tab over here, the gauge. Okay, this is one. Excellent. Let's add something else. How about we are going to be adding, we could have narrative. Here we go. Choose narrative, custom. I'm not going to go for Copilot. A narrative is basically when you type something. This explains certain elements that you have. So at 4.9, minimum of total sales has exceeded the target goal of 0.01, which is good. And this is where you type. The KPI, here we go. The KPI for the following year has been achieved as displayed in the current data set visualization. Here we go. So as you can see now, I was able to create a verbal summary as a commentary. I'm able to comment on this. I'm able to add some own context. You could add a link as well. So it's up to you to get quite creative with the process. Let me try to fix this. Okay, so this is part of the visualization. You have the ability to move it and expand the sizes of this. Here we go. So the KPI has been moved, or for the following year has been achieved and as displayed in the current data set visualization. So you could add your own texts as well. Let's try to build it even further. Now I'm going to have something which is more of a trend line, which is very good. So I'm going to add a trend line over here to show me full data sets from A to Z. And I'm going to allocate this to the top. Excellent. Quite centered. Increase the size. Here we go. We got 24. Excellent. And put it at the center. You could add some colors to it. How about red colors? And you could add a link if you'd like. And you can just simply click on the link to refer to this page. Now let's select or add our data to include as much visualization as possible. So what I would like to have over here for the x-axis, I'm going to just simply go about this carefully because we have a lot of information that we need to make sense of. For the x-axis, I would like to have the game title. This is one. And I would like to have the console. This is two. For the y-axis, I would like to have the total sales. Now it's going to flip. As you can see, I can see the pattern. Also, for the y-axis, I would like to see the sales based on genre. This is one. Okay, I can add the data. Now for the line display, not the bar, I'm going to add as well the total sales to see the pattern. Now I'm going to add the regional sales based on every single region. So here you go. This is one region. This is in another region. And this is in another region. You get the idea. Now I'm building my data such that you could see patterns easily. You could add the column legend. How about we add the column legend? I would like to add the console or game title. Here you go. I'm able to add this. It's already there. How about the developer? Okay, it's already present as well as part of the data. So we do have the legends actually in place. We have the sum of total sales, count of genre, sum of total sales. So everything is quite present for us. As you can see on the x-axis, we got the console. Y-axis, we got the total sales or the total sales and count of genre. So this is very extensive data, which shows me a better representation of my sales based on a game. And that way I'm able to check how every single sale or how every single genre has actually modified or had influenced my KPI. At the same time, the rating for every single one of them. So if I click on this, notice it keeps on flipping. We got 8.2, we got 9. Here you go, 8.8, 5.13, 8.64. Then there are no ratings for this one. Then we have a basic rating. Then it keeps shuffling back and forth. So you get the idea how it goes about representing your data. So now our pages are our report is quite extensive. For the first page, we have a basic summary. We are able to modify this. We included average critique score, maximum critique score, the sales per the game title. Then we got into more details where we have seen whether or not we have reached our KPIs, the average critique score grid, and the count of the game title. Then we have seen a more extensive detail. We added a bit of verbal summary, and we've shared a visual representation of bar graphs and charts. So now you have successfully managed to actually create your first report. Keeping in mind, the subject is quite extensive. You do have a lot of options to add. You do have a lot of things that you could incorporate. But up to this current stage, you have learned about 80 to 90% of the things that you're able to do with Power BI. Welcome back. Now in this current lesson, we are going to take it a bit further, in which I'm going to teach you how to incorporate additional elements to add some flexibility to your reports. So we are going to pick things up where we have left off, in which we are currently at the second page of our report. Let's say I would like to add some external resources or the ability to actually incorporate additional information which goes beyond our report. This is where I'm going to use the power of buttons. So let's say I'm going to reduce the size of this chart over here up to this margin, and I'm going to utilize the space over here to add some information that will direct people or direct the readers or your colleagues to a certain reference. This is where I'm going to navigate to the top. Over here you can add shapes, you could add buttons, so you're able to tinker with these. So we have shapes and buttons, so you're able to pick whatever shape that you'd like. That's one thing. You could also add a button for navigation purposes. For example, if I would like to have a button for Q&A, if you got questions or answers, I'm going to add this button over here. Here we go. Then I have the option to change the shape and change the appeal of this button. Shape should be rectangle. How about oval? And then we're going to have rotation. If I'd like to rotate this, certain style or text, I'm going to add some text to it. Got questions? Click to contact our team. This is one. Okay, so we're able to change the font color to make it pop, alignment in the middle. You could change, increase, or decrease the padding. Here you go. Now let's take a look at other options. We have the icon, which is Q&A type. You could change the icon color. It's up to you. And the icon shape, let's put it in red color. Here we go. Then you have the weight to make it look dense. Is it transparent or not? This is one. I'm going to reduce the weight to make it 3. Excellent. So everything is quite in check. How about adding some filling to give it some borders? I'm going to go for, let's say, a black fill. Okay. Then we have the transparency. You could modify the transparency for this. It's quite transparent and looks a bit professional. And once I hover on it, it's going to change the shape because I've added this hover effect. You would like to have borders or shadows or add some glow in case you would like to draw some attention to it. And the glow will be, let's say, yellow in color and blur effect. Here we go. So Sounds doable. Sounds okay. And the most important part is the action part. This is the action feature. So it's a type of Q&A type, yes. So you have the ability to change this for drill through. We have the ability to page navigation. You have the ability for web URL, which is very powerful. So once you click on the web URL, once you click on the action, you change the functionality. So you have to be careful with this. If you got Q&A, it means you have to add some information over here as part of the Q&A. But once you'd like to navigate to something else, click on the web URL. And then you'll be prompted to add a website over here, or a video, or a link to something external, which will be helpful to your team or your colleagues to actually explore. So you got questions, click to contact our team. You could add whatever link, and as they browse through the report, they have the ability to click on it and to navigate to an external page. Welcome back. Now we are ready to actually export and publish our basic report. So we have multiple options over here. First of all, if you navigate to the top right side, you have the option to download this on your Power BI desktop application. If you notice, once you are logging into Power BI for the first time, you have the option to download the application on your desktop, which gives you more functionality. Here you have the ability to go for paginated report builder, which gives you the ability to create pages for printout, Power BI for mobile, and Excel, OneLake File Explorer. These are different, think about them as apps or locations that you will be downloading the Power BI report to, and then you'll be able to work on it from there. However, if you'd like to just simply use it for your own company, for your own reference, you're going to navigate to here, File. Click on File. Now you have the option, first of all, to save the report. Make sure that you do. You click on Save Report. Then you have the option to print it. The other option is to publish it to the web, and then you could embed this on your website, on your company's website. You could export it to a PowerPoint. You could export it to a PDF. You could just simply download it as is to your computer, and then you're able to upload it to a mobile phone or any other Power BI application. Let's say I'm going to export this to the PDF. So I'm going to click on this. It shows me exported with the current values. Then I click on Export. So this is going to be exporting my PDF in progress. And here we go. So this is the end result. Here we go. You got your first PDF report. You're able to scroll through fully. You're able to print it out. And if we have added links, we have the button ability to click on the links. And congratulations, so far you were able to actually create your first report from A to Z based on the case that we have, which is reporting video game sales and statistics. Like I mentioned, make sure that you download the data set from the resources section of the current course in order to make sure that you're able to access this information and to be able to follow up with us as you are practicing and building your first report. And congratulations, now you have managed to actually get up and running with Power BI. Welcome back. So we have successfully created our report. We've built up our report. But the story does not end here. When you're representing data as part of data analysis and analytics and the visual modeling of the data, sometimes we need to select important pieces of data from different sources and represent them in one specific location. What do I mean by this? For example, we have created our report, and I would like to select certain items from the current report. For example, I would like to have this style from this current page, and then I would like to select this style and this style from the other page. Then I would like to jump in to a different report by going to the tabs over here or creating a new report completely. Let's say a report for the sales department, a report for the administration department, report for the accounting department, and every single one of those reports that I've created over here, I would like to collect some pieces of information that are going to help me get the information that I'm looking for. Instead of navigating to every single one of those reports and every single pages and digging for the information, this is where we get to create a very powerful extension of the reports, which what we call as the dashboard. And I'm going to show you how to create the dashboard one step at a time. The first thing that we need to do in order to create a dashboard, first of all, go to the edit mode over here, click on the edit, And this will take you to the edit mode for the reports. You got the page numbers over here and the various pages that you could create, or you have the ability to create a complete new report, and that will be displayed over here. So once you do so, you have access to all of the tiles that you have. Let's say, for example, I would like to collect the following tile and the following tile and the following tile. The rest I would like to ignore. So I'm going to click on or hover over the tile and click on the small pin visual. You click on it. Now it would say pin to an existing dashboard or a new dashboard. I'm going to call this testing dash. Here we go. So I'm going to pin this. It says over here, create a new mobile layout if you'd like to, or go to the dashboard directly. So for the mobile layout, this is for the advanced applications, which is not for the current focus or the current part that we're going to be involved in. Like I've mentioned, the areas of applications are quite endless. For the advanced users, that will be subject for a discussion for later applications. But for the time being, we're going to be focusing on building our dashboards. So we have collected the following tile, and then I would like to have the following tile as well. So I'm going to click on the pin tab. Then testing dash, pin, here we go. And let's select this one over here, pin, testing dash as well. Now I'm going to go to dashboard. Now this will just simply pick up those tiles only, and this is our first dashboard. It will pop up over here as well. Under your report, you're going to see that you have a new icon, which is for the dashboard. That way you're able to navigate between your report and your dashboard. And if you have multiple reports, you can just simply navigate them one at a time and then go back to your dashboard. So we have created our basic dashboard. Now we're going to learn how to customize it and to take a look at the various elements of the interface that we could use. Now, obviously, we're not done with our dashboard. We'd like to add more data to it. But before we get to that, it's important to include the theme of your dashboard. As you're presenting a dashboard, you could go for different visual representations as part of your data modeling or data visualization efforts. So click on Edit, click on Dashboard Theme, and you will have this following pop-up window. You have the ability to upload your own JSON theme or select pre-built themes. You got light, dark, color friendly, custom. Now, it's up to you. You can select whatever ones that you'd like, but I'm going to show you its capabilities by going through the custom selection. You have the ability to include a background image if you'd like by sharing the URL or changing the background color, which is gray. In this current case, I'm going to change it to black. Here we go. Then the tiles background, it's up to you. You could keep it as is. Or let's change it to black as well and see what we could do. Then change the tiles font color. Here we go. Change them to white. Now, obviously, if the opacity depends on the tile color. Since both of them are the same, it doesn't make a difference. But let me show you how you could make sense of this. If I click this to be white, let's change the opacity. Here we go. Okay. So we're going to keep it as is because the frames will help us selecting our tiles instead of not able to figure out what are the boundaries. So we're going to keep it as is and click on save. Here we go. So you got a summary of your data analysis. Look how professional this report or dashboard looks based on the report's data. I'm collecting pieces of information as a summary of data analysis. Looks very professional. I'm able to move the tiles here and there. Looks very sleek. I'm able to determine the boundaries of the tiles by changing the opacity. That way I have the ability to navigate the movements of the tiles without knowing how to set up the visual boundaries of the tiles. Because if all of them are the same color, let's say black color, it will take you some effort to figure out where are these icons that you could just simply select to drag and expand or reduce the dimensions of the tile. So that way you have the ability to tinker with the themes. Now, we're not done yet. We'd like to incorporate additional elements in our report from our dashboard from various data sources from our report and additional reports in case you have multiple reports. So how do we go about this? We're going to show you this up next. Now let's explore the interface for our dashboard. At the top over here, you have the ability, first of all, to save a copy, manage permissions to access this dashboard or actually print up this dashboard. Then you have the ability to share this dashboard for the paid users, either through your company or you pass it on as a link. You do have the ask a question about your data. If you recall from the report creating segment, you have the ability to pick up information from the data that you have collected. Chat in teams. If you're part of an organization, you're able to have a discussion with your team members on the various data analysis that you have conducted. Comments. In case you have certain areas that you would like to discuss, you can leave a comment over here, and then your colleague can just simply go ahead and jump on board and reply to your comments. This is very powerful. Subscribing to dashboards, which is the paid version where you have within your company the ability to invite individuals to comment, interact with the dashboard and the reports they have created. You have the edit over here. This is very powerful, by the way. You have the ability to add a tile, dashboard theme, and mobile layout. Now we're going to click on add a tile and see the powerful representations that we could add. Click on add a tile. You have the ability for the paid users, for the pro version, to have web content at an actual web page or embed a video, which is very powerful. Now for the free version, for the free trial, you're able to use, you could add images or you could add a text box to add some visuals to your reports to include some sort of a thematic application to it, or you could add some real-time streaming of the data in case of any updates on the reports that will be reflected directly on your dashboard. Let's test this out by adding a text box, for example. Click on the text box, click next. You can display a title and a subtitle if you'd like. Let's stick to a title. Summary of data analysis, for example. This is the title. Fill in the details. Pick up a certain font, certain size. Pick up the color. This is the report title. And I'm going to add the text over here. Here we go. I'm going to copy the same text as is. You feel free to add whatever information that you would like. Align it in the middle. Now you have the ability to add some external links, custom links. Very, very powerful. You click on this, you have the ability to link to a dashboard or a report or a completely different link completely. And you can just simply open this in a new tab or on the same tab. So I'm going to remove the custom link and we click on apply. Notice what we have over here. We got the text box, and you can do this for a web page, you can do this for a video, for an image, and you have the ability to adjust the sizes and allocate different locations for the pins. So I have the ability to extend this, for example, over here. That way it looks visually symmetrical. Think about it like you're creating a canvas of tiles, and you're picking the tiles that you would like. So we have seen so far how we could navigate the various options that we have for our dashboard. Now let's take a look at how could I customize the theme of the dashboard. We learned how to create our dashboard, how to pick up some data from our reports on our dashboard, and then how could we customize the theme, how to navigate the interface. But if I would like to add more additional pieces of information, you're going to navigate to the report that you're interested in. And if you have multiple reports, you can do the same steps. So you click on the report, find out any pieces of information that you would like to have. Let's say I would like to have the minimum critique score to be added. So I'm going to go to the edit. Always remember to click on edit to be able to see the pins, to be able to allocate them to your dashboard. Pin the visual, pick up the dashboard that you have created, then navigate to the other page if you'd like to get more information, or navigate to a completely different report or create a completely different report and follow the same steps again. KPIs are important, so I'm going to be selecting the following KPI, pin to visual, testing, dash, here we go. I've pinned that one as well. How about the chart over here? includes important information, the KPI. So I'm going to be pinning this visual as well to the testing dashboard. Click on pin. Then I could go over here to my dashboard or go to the dashboard over here. It's up to you. Then I'm going to the dashboard and I can see all of the pieces of information that I have collected from different pages of the report. Now, let's assume you have different reports. The same thing will happen. You will go to every single one of those reports or create a new report, and then you are going to be collecting these tiles on your dashboard. That way you have a macro view of the important pieces of information. So let's arrange this report. Here we go. To cover important elements, changing the dimensions a bit. And here we go. We have a full dashboard, which is based on our various pages from the report that we have created that we're able to see and we could interact with. And let's say you would like to investigate things further for a certain tile, just simply click on it and it will take you back to the report that you have gotten it from, and you're able to see exactly where you have gotten this tile from, right? So see the power of dashboards. Think about it like a top level view where you're able to see various pieces of information from various pages within a report and from various reports, which is very powerful as part of data analysis and data analytics. Now, here's an important piece of information for you to further develop your skills in terms of creating your dashboards. So we have created and finalized our dashboard, but let's say if you are a bit advanced with data and you would like to investigate the relationships between the data, take a look at the three dots over here. Click on them. You can see the option for related content, open workspace lineage. What does that mean? Related content, once you click on it, it's going to show you the reports that you have used to build up the dashboard and the semantic models, the actual data that you have uploaded. So this is the first level and this is the second level before coming to your dashboard. So you have the ability to, first of all, modify the data. You could create a report directly. You could schedule a refresh in case there are updates on the actual data set. And you could explore the actual reports, not on the Power BI representation, but through Excel. Also, you have the ability to investigate the settings to adjust the report name, or you could just assign it to someone, or you could just simply have the ability to modify the filters or to change the headers at a macro level. So these are some basic settings which are helpful if you would like to dive into the connectivity of the data directly from your dashboard to have a clear idea about what are the reports that are being involved, what are the pieces of data that are being involved, and how could you apply some basic settings adjustments for the reports and the data in terms of refreshing the data and updating the data. That way you have the ability to actually tinker with the dashboard directly, and you have the ability to analyze it in Excel. You have the ability to assign security measures as part of a company. If you'd like to allow access to certain individuals or not, you could manage permissions, and you can download all of the data as a file instead of trying to dig for the data based on the initial setup as a data source. If you're working from a different department, for example, you have to talk to that person to get access to the data, but you can do this with a couple clicks straight from your dashboard. So this is an additional, let's say, advanced pro tip that you could keep at the back of your mind as you're developing your level in terms of data modeling and data visualizations and data analytics with Power BI. Our dashboard is ready. We have multiple options to actually utilize the dashboard, either through sharing it with your colleagues or chat in Teams, where you can drop it on the chat and you're able to communicate with your colleagues, or you could invite individuals to comment within your organization, or you could have individuals subscribe to the dashboard to engage with it. All of these are to a certain extent pro or paid versions that you could use as part of your organization or work or school email. But we have the ability as well to actually export this. You can save a copy, obviously, manage permissions for the people within your organization who are going to use it. That being said, you have the ability to print this as an actual document, a PDF. So you click on print page. You can just simply print this for your own manual review or for a documentation within the company or your organization. The applications are quite endless. You have the export settings. You can put this as a PDF or different options. Make sure that you're actually selecting either all the pages or a certain number of pages. Take a look at the layout. This is very important because we have used a landscape layout, so you need to modify this in order to include some of the visuals. But if you notice, it needs some adjustment based on the paper size, the margins, the scale that you could tinker with in order to make sure that you're getting the full visual of the report. And that way you could assign it to a printer, the full visual of the dashboard, that you could assign it to a printer and simply you could print it out. And you can do the same thing with reports as well. You can print them following the same fashion. In addition to sharing them, passing them on to teams, commenting on them. And for dashboards, you have the really powerful ability to subscribe to a dashboard. This is very powerful. You could invite your colleagues to join in. You could share data sets. You could even view this on the mobile application for the advanced users and for your own organizational applications. And that way you have concluded the buildup of your dashboard from A to Z, and your dashboard is up and running and ready to go.
So, what do you think? I truly hope that you found the course quite helpful, the same way we found it quite joyful and very beneficial teaching it to you. This knowledge is essential, especially in today's market, where all of the trends are towards automation and optimization, specifically within businesses and organizations. So if you'd like to have a positive input on your workflow, on your organizational development, on your business growth, these skills, this expertise is essential for your growth and the development of your organization as a whole. So I truly hope that you found the course quite helpful and beneficial. So make sure that you share your feedback with us in order to see how was your progress within the current course. And we'll look forward to seeing you in further upcoming releases as well. Stay tuned till then.